flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Pursuant to the provisions of Section 2.68.030 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws, notice is hereby given that if you are not satisfied with the decision made by the Metropolitan Transportation Licensing Commission, you may appeal the decision by petitioning for a writ of certiorari with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of the entry of the Metropolitan Transportation Licensing Commission's decision. We advise that you seek your own independent legal advice to ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been met. Have the commissioners had an opportunity to review the proposed minutes from last month?
Yes.
Is there a motion regarding approval?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. We've got a long agenda today, and there was a couple items we need to take out of order. The first has to do, I believe, Mr. Fields, regarding a complaint against Miss Monville. Is that correct?
At the last meeting, there was an issue of whether or not a horse was cantering or trotting. You asked that I get gather some information about what that might be, and we've asked Dr. Ivy from the University of Tennessee to be with us, and she's on the telephone, and if you'd like to bring her into the meeting, we can.
All right. And I'm assuming Miss Monville is here as well.
Ms. Monville?
And we're ready to go on that.
She's at the tail end of the docket, and we had no idea. Until Mr. Lyons came in with this phone, I didn't have any idea that we were going to have a phone conference. That's fine. But she's not here presently. She's on the way.
Okay.
And by the way, I can hear you fine here, but nobody back in the back can hear you guys.
You know what? I thank you for bringing that up to my attention. I didn't realize the microphone wasn't right in front of me.
You do need to speak up. These are not fed into the overall today.
Hey, Ed, she's in the building.
Okay, we'll get her down here as soon as possible, and maybe we can do one or two things before that. I'm sorry.
All right. Dr. Ivy, we're going to delay for probably 5 minutes or so, if that's okay.
Sure, no problem.
All right, I'm going to put you back on mute.
Okay.
All right, so let's go ahead then and take up the wrecker and towing services items. Mr. Fields, it looks like we've got some driver applications for 3 drivers. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. We have the first driver is Brent Elliott. Brent Elliott, come up, please. Mr. Elliott has applied to be a wrecker driver. He disclosed everything. He does have a he does have a record. Nothing that would prohibit him from being a driver. I did want you to at least have an opportunity to review it, but again, otherwise he qualifies.
Mr. Elliott, I just have, just looking over here, seems like you've had quite a few accidents pretty close together.
Yeah, I had 2 last year.
Right, 2 last year, 1 in 2014.
Yes.
These accidents were in your personal vehicle?
Yes.
No accidents this year?
No, sir. As far as my CDL goes, I've not had anything with that.
Was this possession in conjunction with the accident?
No. No.
Did you receive a ticket or charge in connection with those accidents?
No, I did not.
Were you at fault in those accidents?
I was not.
That being the case, I make a motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right. Do I just need to go down and pick that up now, or how does that work?
Yes, you'll go down to the main office where Mr. Fields works.
Okay. Is it a day or something after this, or?
About how long does it take?
Oh, we can come tomorrow.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Next, we have Michael Good.
Michael Good? And you have a representative from the company with you?
Yes.
In making his application, he disclosed everything. He had he did have a DUI in 2016, so I did want to bring that to your attention, but otherwise he is qualified. In fact, if you look at his record, that's all that came back to the TBI, from the TBI.
So DUI was in 2016, is that right?
July 10th, 2015 is when
2015.
I was initially charged with it.
Okay. And you've already got lined up a position with
Yes.
the company?
Yes, sir.
And are you with West Nashville?
Yes.
Could you introduce yourself, please?
I'm Eric McCaslin. I'm the operations manager, West Nashville Record Service.
And Mr. Good has been working with your company for the last few months?
He has not yet. We were waiting pending the permit hearing.
I did work for you on separately prior.
He worked for us prior.
Okay.
He's a previous employee. He was there for, I think, 7 years, something like that.
And so pending this approval, he will be
Have it-
working with you?
yes.
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Fields, Mr. Good's otherwise
He's otherwise
able
qualified.
to be qualified and approved?
Well, again, I make a motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Good.
Thank you, sir.
Next, we have Robert McSpadden.
He's requested to be deferred to next month.
All right. Anyone like to make a motion to defer?
Motion to defer.
A second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. All right. I've been motioned that Ms. Monville is here now, so I'll get Dr. Ivy back on the phone. Dr. Ivy?
That's never a good sign.
The light's off.
Yeah, it's not green anymore.
Sure. Thank you.
Jenny Ivy.
Dr. Ivy, it's Sal Hernandez. Sorry we got disconnected there. But
That's okay.
we're ready to proceed with the issue that we asked you to examine for us. Mr. Fields, if you could just get us back up to
Sure.
speed on where we left off.
At the last meeting, there was a complaint that had been filed against Southern Comfort and Jesse Monville regarding allowing a horse to canter versus trot. The ordinance does not allow a horse to go at a speed above a trot. The commission asked if we would have I think we had 2 or 3 seconds of video that we reviewed, and you asked if we would go to someone that had a higher level of expertise. We talked with Dr. Ivy, who works at the University of Tennessee Agricultural Extension Service and is their equine expert, and we asked her to review the video that was provided.
All right, and so Dr. Ivy, I'm presume you've already looked at the video,
Yes, I have.
and what was your conclusion after looking at the video?
So in the short video clip, the horse closest to the camera, passing the other carriage, is cantering during that video time period.
All right, and the video is about how long in length?
I think the clip is only a couple seconds long, maybe 5 to 7. And then the section of video that I watched, the video kind of repeated itself a few times.
Commissioners, do y'all have any other questions for Dr. Ivy?
I'd like to ask her something. May I?
I do not.
Do you have any questions?
Yes, I have a couple. Do you have, can you hear me okay?
You just sound a little far away, but I think so.
You can stand closer if you'd like.
Dr. Ivy, Ed Highland, I'm an attorney in Nashville. Is there any indication as to how long this little, this cantering occurred besides 2 seconds?
From what I can tell in the short clip, it appears that the horse is already cantering at the time the video starts, and is still cantering when it goes out of the screen.
So that's
So it's hard to say if it picked up, 2 minutes before or just right before it comes into view.
And the horse was going uphill, is that correct? Does it appear
Yes,
to be?
that is correct from what the video appears to show.
Does it have, were you able to see what the driver was doing to control the horse? Any idea from what you reviewed?
Not clearly from what I reviewed that I could really tell what the driver was doing during that period of time.
Okay. What's the difference between a canter and a trot? How much difference is there?
So in horses that utilize those gaits, the footfall pattern is really the major difference. So a trot is going to be a 2-beat lateral gait where the left hind and right front will hit the ground at the same time and then obviously come off at the same time. And then conversely, the right hind and the left front will hit and move in unison. The canter actually has 2 different leads, depending on which direction the horse is going and how they're balanced. They will preferentially select one over the other. Usually with the right, say for example, the right lead, if the horse was turning to the right direction, and the left lead if the horse was going towards the left direction. And so just to kind of give you an example, if we were looking at maybe the left canter, it's going to be a 3-beat gait where the right hind would hit first, and then the right front and left hind will move together in a pair, and then followed by the left front. So that's where we get that 3-beat gait. And then we would kind of flip that for the right lead canter, where the left hind would hit first, left front and right hind, and then followed by the right front.
Okay.
And so part of the other difference is there may be a varying degree of speed that horses will move in both the trot and the canter. But really the biggest difference is going to be the footfall pattern and the way each horse kind of balances themselves will depend a little bit based on which gait they're more comfortable at.
All right, now, very quickly, let me ask you again, well, I really didn't ask this to start with, and I apologize for making you think I did, or trying to make you think I did. If a horse is trotting, what does it take the driver to do to cause it to canter? Or is there anything that a driver can do? Does a horse sometimes simply voluntarily or for whatever reason start cantering?
And so without over speculating, obviously you're working with an animal that has a mind and a brain of its own. But at certain points, whoever is in control of that animal, whether it be a rider or a driver or someone on the ground, can anticipate or control in broke animals the way that they are changing gait. So for example, in this case, going from a trot to a canter and vice versa. Additionally, through training and other mechanisms, we do have the ability to, I don't want to say interfere, but maybe intervene with the gait that the horse would choose to be at based on what we would like them to do as someone, again, who's riding or driving. Does that answer your question?
I think so. Basically what you're saying, if I might, is that if the horse gets into a canter, you can bring the horse out of the canter fairly easily. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And if a horse is trotting, the horse can go into a canter fairly easily without the driver meaning for the horse to do that, because the horse has a mind of his own. Small mind, I guess, but a mind of his own. Is that right?
Yes. The reason that I'm hesitant is because when we look at like the mechanisms of horsemanship and training horses, a lot of it is to ensure that through the process of us being able to control the animal and to train them to do what we're asking, especially with regard to maneuvering around humans and keeping them safe, just as easily, like I said, as we're able to prevent a behavior. There's also some indicating factors and some cues that a horse may break to a different gait, drop in speed, increase speed, things like that, and that should all be things that the trainer, rider, driver, what have you, should be considering for and controlling.
But the horse did not appear to be out of control. Is that basically what you're saying?
Again, from what I can see in the video, the horse is just cantering.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. If
Sure.
somebody else would like, the actual driver would like to ask you some questions too. I don't represent her, I represent her employer.
Hi, my name is Jessie. Been in horses 35 years. I'd like to explain exactly what happened and then get your take on the video. This horse is a leader. She walks much faster than the other two horses, and we were going home, and she was literally trying to push into the carriage in front of me because she knew she should be in the front. So we made the decision to move her around the two carriages. She took one canter stride when she got excited knowing she belongs up there, and I did a half halt to bring her back to a trot, which you can hear the 4-beat pattern on the video. Goes from the canter stride to the trotting stride at the very end of the video. Would you say you saw anything that indicates different than that?
So all I can see in the video from the clip, like I said, is it comes in at a canter and leaves at a canter.
Did it have sound? I apologize. Did it have sound on the one you looked at?
Yes, the video has sound, but it's hard to make out which footfall patterns are for the horse that's cantering and which footfall patterns are for the two horses behind that are currently trotting in the video.
And my last question is, wouldn't you agree that almost all horses, including trail horses, will attempt to canter up a steep hill, and that's why they encourage you to give them their head so they can keep their balance up a steep hill?
So research has indicated to us that horses will preferentially select whichever gait up and down an incline or on a flat surface that they find most comfortable. And so depending on, like I said, that horse's training and what speeds they're most comfortable at, some horses will never break to a canter and some horses will break to a canter always. It's really kind of the case-by-case basis.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you,
Sure.
Doctor.
Any other questions for Dr. Ivy? All right, well, Dr. Ivy, thank you for your time. We very much appreciate you reviewing the video, so we can go ahead and let you go now. So thank you.
Absolutely. Have a great day.
Would anyone like to question this lady? You've heard her say something. You might want to question her too.
Are there any questions for Ms. Monville?
Not necessarily for her, but I just want to make sure that I understand The canter is quicker than a trot.
Correct.
And the canter is.
Can be
No, ma'am.
Can be quicker than a trot.
If I may explain, the trot and the canter are gaits. It's similar to a person jogging in place. So it may be in place, or it could be at a forward motion. I have video with me that shows you can canter in place.
Correct.
You can trot in place. I can trot next to a horse cantering at the same speed and canter at the same speed as the trot. It is not a speed.
Okay, and canter is not prohibited by the rules, is that correct?
Cantering, a horse cannot do more than a trot, regardless of the speed.
It has to do with the foot pattern.
Pattern.
I'm sorry?
It has to do more with the foot pattern.
Correct.
Does not permit the speed at which any horse-drawn carriage is driven to exceed a trot.
Right.
So it does emphasize the speed.
Well, that ordinance might not have been written by a horse expert, I don't know. But all that being what it is, this lady, I think, has explained the situation, and as did Mr. Marson when he was here the last time, which I'm not sure he's here right now.
He was in the garage.
Okay. And he'll be here shortly. She was driving a horse up the hill. She explained what went on. This was nothing she did voluntarily to make the horse do that. The horse did, and she reined him in. We got 3 seconds. I sure would like to have seen them. It's kind of convenient. We had 2 seconds of that on that film over and over again. So, and that's what the doctor said. Let me, if I might, I apologize for taking up y'all's time, and you don't have to read this, but I want to pass something out that I wrote about 2 years ago, almost exactly, with regard to the last, if I might.
All right.
It's a letter I wrote, and for what it's worth, I appreciate y'all. I wrote it to the mayor. I never got an answer, but it has to do with things that are going on in. I've got an extra. I'm not going to use it.
We'll share.
Yeah. Got it.
We play well with others. Oh,
No.
all right. Thank you.
And that's just for your information, and it was kind of something that was going on at the same time, same kind of, you folks have acted on one of the things that we talked about with regard to Mr. Smith. And that's where most of this furor originates. And there are other things in there. I have the pleasure of representing a whole lot of folks before the board for different things, as y'all know. And from the record service to the services to the horse-drawn carriages. And I'm pleased to do that. But I wanted to be sure that, don't know if Mayor Berry sent everybody a copy of it, but I sent her one. And I was hoping that she had probably filtered down through Mr. Fields to you folks, but I don't know if that happened or not.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Highland.
Has Jesse ever been before
No.
us before? This
Not in recent history anyway. I
I've
don't think
never
she
been in this
has.
before.
Was there an accident or any?
Just an observation made and a complaint filed.
And we only had 2 seconds of
2 or 3
Mm-hmm.
seconds, yes.
Less than 5, I think. I didn't measure it, but I'd say less than 5 for sure.
Pretty sure.
I'll take the doctor too.
Pretty sure.
I'm not challenging Dr. Ivy.
Well, I mean, it sounds like from what we've heard from Dr. Ivy and from Ms. Monville that at some point in time during this clip, we have some evidence that the horse is cantering. We have Ms. Monville's statement that she brought the horse back to a trot, and that it also is not uncommon for a horse to choose its preference on whether to go into a canter or a trot when going up a hill. Given the shortness of the video, I don't think we can conclusively determine that Ms. Monville allowed the horse to remain in a canter. So I would recommend we not find her in violation of any regulation.
I'd like to make a motion to not find Miss Jessie.
I guess it's a complaint against Miss Monville, so we're,
Miss Monville herself and not who she works for.
Well, it was both.
and Southern Comfort against both.
You could, the motion, you just dismiss the complaint.
I'd like to make a motion to dismiss the complaint.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Very much.
All right, we're also going to take another item out of order. Can everyone hear me? I'm going to try to speak louder. I didn't realize these mics were not piping through the room. We're going to take up next a public hearing to review. This first one looks like it'll be very short. The request to transfer Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity from Nashville Taxi Ride DBA to AMCT. Is everything in order there?
Yes, sir. In order for a company to, in order for a certificate of public convenience and necessity for a taxi cab company to be transferred, they have to go through they have to go through a process very similar to the application. The applicant already operates companies and is asking to assume the certificate of another company. I think he probably has some additional information with him if you need it. We need to do the final processing of the application check and that sort of thing, but otherwise everything appears to be in order. This was announced last month per the ordinance.
It's just a matter of process.
Assuming everything is in order and you're satisfied that he and the company that he operates can assume this. He can at this point complete the full application because he can't actually insure anything that's not his. Assuming that you approve it, then he would have to produce insurance and show that vehicles and business, that everything is now covered, that the Checker brand now be covered under his insurance.
Is Mr. Hassan or Hassan here?
Yes, sir.
Would you like to make a brief statement or anything?
Actually, yes, about the driver's permits. Status, we have a driver's driving for Checker, and tomorrow will be Music City. Do we have to change the permit every time, or we can?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
He had asked that he be able to do, as some of the other companies have multiple certificates, to operate. A driver for American Music City could also drive for Pink, or could also drive for Checker. We do that with Taxi Allied Nashville, and he already does that with the company. So, in other words, their drivers would be interchangeable in between the companies.
I understand.
Now, all these drivers, are they listed on their certificate that they drive for those three particular companies on the one certificate?
Every quarter, well, it actually, the way we have done it in the past, they typically have a certificate for each company. I believe that's accurate. And because they do, we do require quarterly reports of drivers. We also require, anytime a driver changes, the company has to approve it, send in a notice saying we are going to accept this driver, and then their list has to be altered. So yes, they have to keep an updated list with us on all of their drivers and all of their vehicles. So anytime anything's added or taken away, we update.
Is there a fee incurred by doing that for each individual application?
Only when the driver, if they come from another company, they would be charged a $10 replacement fee for the permit itself.
Well, having heard that everything is in order regarding the request, I don't see why we shouldn't approve.
And I'm not sure if there's anybody else that wanted to speak on it, but
Is anyone present who'd like to speak on this issue of transferring the certificate of public convenience and necessity from Nashville Taxi Ride LLC to AMCT Inc.?
I'm Nashville Taxi Ride LLC. I have nothing to say.
All right.
Mr. President.
At this point, we'll close the public hearing. Would anyone like to make a motion regarding the request to transfer?
Move approval for the transfer of certificate of public convenience and necessity from Nashville Taxi Ride LLC to AMCT.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Next, we have a public hearing on our review of KCI Technologies slow-moving vehicle traffic studies, conclusions, and proposed recommendations. Mr. Fields?
KCI Technologies was when they started the study was RPN. They completed the study for slow-moving vehicles. They have made some recommendations. Today's hearing would be for you to consider recommendations they made for pedal vehicles, which would be pedal carriages and pedicabs, as well as the low-speed vehicles. And again, we ask you to move up because the police are here and they'd like to comment on it.
All right, and have we received requests to speak from members of the audience?
Not written.
Okay.
Doesn't appear.
All right, well, let's allow Metro PD to speak first on this matter. Hello.
Thank you. Sergeant John Bork, Metro Police, Special Events. And please ask me any questions you have because I can't stay for the field hearing. I've got to go and prepare for the Pred, so I'll be running out of here. I've read the recommendations by KCI. Agree with what they have on here, not so much with the recommended routes, but as far as some of the other restrictions that they have in place. What we're seeing in special events is when we activate for a big special event, we have officers assigned to intersections to pull all that additional volume through the intersections. The problem with the pedal cabs and more specifically the pedal carriages, because we're not seeing as many pedal cabs as we have in the past, but the pedal carriages is we can only pull the traffic at 5 miles an hour. And that doesn't help us because that's as fast as they're going to move. They're not going to go any faster. Sometimes it's even slower than that. So we want to pull the traffic at 20 to 30 miles an hour to get it moving through the intersection so it can either get to the parking areas or if it's rush hour traffic so we can get rid of it, whatever the case may be, and they are slowing it down to a crawl. On one-lane streets or streets that have been made one lane because we have to put in some type of loading zone or something like that for Ubers and Lyfts for a large event, we are stuck with whatever speed they're going. And that really hurts our ability to move the traffic in an efficient manner. So we would like to see less of them, especially during the special events. How they operate during the regular days and how the traffic is down there. When we're not there, I can't speak to. I know that it gets really quiet in that 9 to 3 time span when there's not rush hour traffic and there's not a special event. It's not as bad. I'm sure that that's okay. I know they operate a lot on the weekends, and a lot of people think that downtown traffic, if it's not rush hour, there's no traffic. Well, on the weekends, it's pretty thick, especially when there's a special event. It can be volumes at or above rush hour traffic during special events down there, be it Preds or watch parties or some type of street festival, CMA, whatever it is, that's in the middle of the street and causing more traffic than would normally be down there. Just to speak to some of the things that I know KCI made on here, we do hear a lot of loud music. Some of them come from pedal cabs, pedal carriages all the time. I tell my guys when they get on the street, the special events crew, that we want to write them for the loud music. It seems like once we hit all those intersections, the music goes down dramatically. Still a lot of yelling encouraged by the people driving or operating the beer or whatever part of it, encouraged by them. They're encouraging the yelling and the cutting up. I know that it's not against the law. That just goes to the the residents that complain about all the loud noise. But as for the loud music, that does violate, and I do instruct my guys if they get a chance to write them. The problem with the violations being committed by the drivers of the pedal carriages is that a lot of times the guys don't have time to deal with it. We're dealing with Uber and Lyft so much, trying to keep the traffic moving because they're constantly stopping in it, that we don't have time to deal with those things. We do notice them in loading zones for extended periods of time, not just the 3 minutes that they're supposed to be there to load and unload their passengers, but extended period of times where the passengers are either sitting and drinking on the carriages or just hanging around the carriages, or the carriages are waiting for something. I don't know if they're waiting for the carriage to get picked up or waiting for their riders to come or what have you, but we notice that they're in those loading zones much longer than they should be. Any questions?
You said you didn't particularly agree with the routes that you had seen on the study. Did you possibly have some alternative routes to what the study proposed?
Unfortunately, I just looked at it when I got here. The issue is a lot of them take them on 2-lane streets, where there's 1 lane this direction, 1 lane the other direction, and there's no way to get around them when they're going that slow. So you're just piling up that traffic behind them, frustrating drivers. Often drivers are going into the oncoming lane to get around them because nobody wants to drive at 3-4 miles an hour, right? They want to get on by and go. They're not in, from a safety standpoint, I would have never licensed a vehicle like this to be on the street, because if a car does eventually hit one of these, you can imagine the devastation. They have no protective, there's no protective shell to this at all. And so I understand they're paying for the ride, and I guess they understand the dangers that they're going through. But of course it has to be on the low speed, and downtown is the low speed areas. But I don't know that there's a good route for them, to be honest with you. But roads where people could get by them safely and legally would be best.
Have there been any accidents? I'm sure that there have been. How many accidents do you know of where a car has interacted with one of these?
I don't know that information. It can be found out, but I have no idea.
I'm not aware of any accidents where a vehicle has struck one of the petty carriages. We have had a couple where vehicles have struck petty cabs. We have had issues where I think riders have fallen from the pedal carriage or dangled their feet, got out of the seat and still been going on it. But as far as accidents, I don't recall any.
If a pedal carriage has motor assist capabilities, is it able to, what speeds are we talking about here on a?
I'll have to defer to the companies to talk about specific speeds. All of them do not have motor assist. I think they're all moving in the direction of having motor assist.
On this report, you said pedal cab or pedal carriage? Which one did you say?
Pedal carriage.
On the report, it says 5.7 miles per hour. Average speed.
I'll say this about the pedal cabs as well. Last year, we allowed them to operate during CMA Fest because they said they could achieve speeds of 25 miles an hour with the assist, and that is not true. We often found them going 7 to 8 miles an hour, and I would stop them and ask, hey, you're supposed to be going 20 miles an hour. What's the deal? And when they have the passengers on, they can't go that fast. Even with the assist, they can't achieve those speeds, especially with the hills.
And you're in special events.
Yes, sir.
And before that?
Community sergeant for the Central Precinct.
For Central Precinct, which includes the whole area, the majority of the area covered in the study?
Correct. Just not the area around Music Row wouldn't be.
Can you speak to the transportation, public necessity and convenience of the pedal vehicles and the low-speed vehicles? Are they providing a?
I don't know that they're providing a service that's not being provided by some other vehicle that could achieve traffic speeds.
Okay.
Well, Sergeant Bork, thank you for your time. I know you need to get on out of here. So I
right.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Looks like we have another member who would like to speak on this matter.
Hi, Commission. I'm Claudia Husky with the Metro Special Events team, and as part of these recommendations, as Sergeant Bork alluded, a lot of the issues that we have come into play around special events, and one of the areas that Sergeant Bork made mention of just previously was you did take actions last year to restrict both pedicabs, horse carriages, and pedal taverns during CMA Music Fest when we had the Preds playoffs going at the same time, and we were so restricted on open roads. And so, again, as part of these recommendations, it would be wonderful for you to consider kind of overall operations during special events. As he mentioned, we do get a lot of complaints about people coming in or out of town for one of these special events, getting stuck behind a slow-moving vehicle and, it really jamming up that traffic. I think that when we are looking at special events, especially when they involve massive closures, and I know that those who work and live downtown really experience this, is, once Broadway or Demumbrian or, one of the large streets are closed, then all of a sudden you get stuck behind, a slow-moving vehicle or a low-speed vehicle, and it is unbelievably difficult to move out. As far as Commissioner Carr, when you were asking about route recommendations, one of the biggest things that we talked about as a team is how south of Broadway it's getting to be more and more difficult to operate, especially with Bridgestone Tower coming online. You've got the Pinnacle building now there that can hardly get traffic out. You have the Symphony, the Music City Center. Those couple blocks have become incredibly congested. So we were kind of making a recommendation that north of Broadway is a little bit easier to navigate. Obviously, during special events last year, you really restricted the area, especially for horse carriages, I think, and pedicabs, and I think horse carriages just ended up not operating. And then the pedal carriages did Music Row, and there was an accommodation for them along 8th Avenue, and I can't speak to how that necessarily operated, but I think it was really helpful for them to not be in the roads during CMA. So that's something I would definitely look at. And then one of the other issues that I would ask that you take a look at is we have had a lot more feedback on the golf carts and the low-speed vehicles providing tours. It was our conversation last time that they, can move with the speed of traffic and, kind of produce a point-to-point transit option that was really helpful, especially for hotels and, some areas where people needed that transportation. But now they are advertising tours, and so now they're just driving around, pointing out different sites and that kind of activity. And with, a small number of riders in one vehicle, it's probably not the most efficient use of, that time when, again, we had originally talked about them being authorized to only provide that, point-to-point transportation for, the visitors and, or, those who work and live downtown. So that's just kind of what I would add to that context. And obviously, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Husky?
Do you think the special events extends to events at the arena in general because of road closures related to those events?
I think that special events, yes, sir, I do, especially when the kind of spring and summertime starts and you really start to see more conventions utilizing outdoor space. You may recall that we had the Hearth and Grill convention here, and they closed Demumbrian and 5th, and then we had events at at Bridgestone Arena during that same time. So not only did you have the impact of the closure for the convention, but you also had an impact for the hockey game or the concert or whatever was taking place at Bridgestone. So it does get to be more challenging for everyone to operate at the same time. And on that note, I do want to make sure that I pass along, because we have received complaints even as recent as today from the Music City Center that they have a lot of the pedal carriages that pull into their cutouts along Fifth Avenue in between Demumbrian and KVB, and they will park there and utilize restroom facilities. Sometimes the passengers will get sick in the restrooms, and that provides a challenge for the Music City Center to operate. They will also utilize the tables kind of on their terrace areas and not clean up after themselves, and will kind of have those escalated noise levels that sometimes interfere with the convention. So that's why, again, one of the other reasons that we were encouraging most of their activity to be north of Broadway, just so we don't have as many of those issues related to the Music City Center. So I wanted to make sure I passed that along.
Are you talking about pedal carriages?
Correct.
And I would say that the density of residential and office activity is greater north of Broadway than it is south. There's a slightly different street level of activity from the visitor sector, but the office and residential sector is busier north of Broadway. So I think that distinction for providing alternate routes for the low-speed vehicles or pedal vehicles may not necessarily apply. They're different uses, but they still occupy the streets and the sidewalks.
That's true.
Well, thank you, Ms. Husky. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else who would like to speak on this matter before we close the public hearing?
This is in relation to the traffic study, correct?
Yes.
Is this for LSVs or floating vehicles?
It is for both.
Both.
Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Michael from Cruise, and we operate one of the low-speed vehicle companies. I guess first comment I have to make is what I've heard so far, and I guess what I'm not understanding is there's a lot of people walking down the sidewalk because of all the bars and all the music. Maybe we should close the bar so you can get down the sidewalk easier. It doesn't make sense. People come to Nashville to ride the pedal carriages. They come to Nashville to move around town on the low-speed vehicles, to do all the things that are downtown. All the restrictions I'm hearing, and I'll talk about the study in just a second, all the restrictions I'm hearing don't make sense with what built Nashville. Nashville's fun. That's why people come here. Get rid of the pedal carriages, get rid of the low-speed vehicles, get rid of all the stuff that people come to do. And sure, they're at a convention and it's nice and quiet, but how do they get around town? What do they do for entertainment? So I had to give my 2 cents on it doesn't make sense to me. When I read the study, and at first I want to digress a little bit, the study that was put out in 2016, the low-speed vehicles kind of got sucked into, as you guys well know. We were not part of that study, and at the very end of that meeting, the recommendations that were made basically said, let's do that to the low-speed vehicles too, with really no standing on pulling us into those 4 to 6 and other restrictions and that kind of stuff. This new study, while I do appreciate that they did some data on the low-speed vehicles, they didn't tell us anything we didn't know. Low-speed vehicles go 20 to 25 miles an hour. They seat up to 8 people. There's nothing in the study. They didn't talk to a single low-speed vehicle company in the part of their study. I read through the entire study, and there's not, from my standpoint, there's not one piece of data that we didn't already know. And what I mean by that is, first off, the study and none of the comments I've heard so far focus on any of the positive attributes of what low-speed vehicles, pedal carriages bring to town. The hundreds of thousands of people that use these vehicles obviously aren't here to speak on whether they have value or not. The original study, which we talked about, the key safety issue that I see from a low-speed vehicle, and it's mentioned multiple times in the study, is the speed differential. So supposedly that's the biggest issue they have with low-speed vehicles being on the street is the speed differential, which to me doesn't hold water. I have pictures of all of the speed limit signs. I have a radar gun where I went out and personally tracked traffic on various streets at various times a day. When you look at Church Street, 30-mile-an-hour speed. When you look at Broadway at Vandy, 30-mile-an-hour speed. Low-speed vehicles go 25 miles an hour. So we're talking about a 5-mile-an-hour speed differential. When you go home on the interstate, somebody's doing 65, somebody's doing 70. Is that unsafe? It's a 5-mile-an-hour speed differential. I don't think it makes that big a difference when you're looking at low-speed vehicles. In addition to that, and you guys are more than welcome to look at these, I have tracked the speeds on various streets with a radar gun to give you an idea of what speeds are at certain times. And I did that because nowhere in the study did it say what the speeds are on these roads at given times. It gives some averages, but it doesn't give the speeds at any given times. So those are using a radar gun to track speeds at various locations around town. Another thing I would take into account, in looking at the study on page 7, it said there were 10 carts operating from 4 to 6, and I think we all know this. The low-speed vehicles are allowed to be on the street from 4 to 6. They just can't be hauling passengers. Technically speaking, the low-speed vehicle could go down the road at 5 o'clock and it's not breaking any rules whatsoever unless it has passengers on board. Also on page 7, it said 69 low-speed vehicles were seen from 3 to 4 and from 6 to 7. My guess is that's the same vehicle making circles over and over again. It's not 69 separate vehicles, because I can attest, as I'm sure Chris and other people can, we probably didn't have 69 vehicles out from 3 to 4 o'clock on average. My guess those are vehicles going in a circle. And another thing they didn't put in the study is, while they mentioned on page 7 that 83% of the vehicles they monitored were low-speed vehicles, nowhere did they mention how many vehicles were actually crossing those intersections. I looked at the TDOT reports, and some of these intersections have 10, 15, 18,000 cars. So in the process of 18,000 cars, you saw 69 low-speed vehicles. That's 2%. So in the grand scheme of things, it's a fraction. So while, yes, you saw 69 low-speed vehicles, when you look at the total traffic flow, it's less than 2% of the entire traffic in some of those intersections. Now, I don't know exactly which intersections, what time of day. There's some variables there. But according to TDOT, the traffic studies show an astronomical amount of numbers of cars going through per hour as compared to the low-speed vehicles that were saw. I do agree that loading and unloading zones are probably not being managed the best. I think Billy and I have talked about this, that there's probably some signage. There's some training on our side. There's being there too long, not long enough, that kind of stuff. While I agree those should be enforced, and maybe some more signage. And I've been to multiple meetings where some of the commercial trucks have talked about getting tickets and not having adequate places to do stuff. So my recommendation, as I look at all this, and I briefly mentioned this last time, and also keep in mind, today I speak for the majority of the low-speed vehicle permits in the city. I speak on the behalf of Hee-Haw, I speak on behalf of Sprocket Rockets permits, and I speak on the behalf of our permits. Collectively, we have 40 permits on the street for low-speed vehicles. I'm recommending that we downsize the operation zone in which we work. I have, in the past, gave you a copy of that, but here's another copy of the recommendation. So I do not believe routes make sense for the multiple reasons you guys have talked about, not to mention, as I'm sure Billy can attest, trying to enforce routes would be a lot harder than what we try to enforce today. If you look at that map, in addition to that, I also have, and since day one, we've had GPS data. No, I'll hurry, I'm sorry. Since day one, we've had GPS data on all of our vehicles. These are some GPS reports that tell you where we operate. I can tell you 90% of where we spend time is downtown, Marathon, the Gulch, and some of our tours do extend a little further out. Once in a blue moon, we go to the east side. Once in a blue moon, we go to 12 South, because in reality, 12 South doesn't go far enough to actually get into 12 South. My recommendation is you chop out East Nashville, you chop out 12 South, you downsize the zone in which we work. I think that makes it easier for Billy and for us and everybody to manage what we do. I'd also, and I think this is a stretch, would like to look at operating in some of the times you don't allow us. If you look at the radar reports I did from 4 to 6, the average traffic flow is anywhere from 15 to 20 miles an hour. Low-speed vehicles do not slow anything down during that time. And I can tell you today, or this week, I probably had 5 requests from parties of anywhere from 5 to 20 to get transportation from 4 to 6 because they're trying to get to dinner, they're trying to go places, and they don't want to have to get 3 Ubers or get a shuttle bus or Gray Line, nothing against them. They want to jump on something that's fun, because that's why they come to Nashville, so they like the low-speed vehicles. Monday and Tuesday of this week, we moved 150 people in 2 separate days on low-speed vehicles, roughly from, I'd say 6 or 7 blocks. through downtown Nashville. 150 people would have taken 3 or 4 gray line buses, depending on the size of the buses, to move around. And while I understand we're not the fastest thing on the street, we're also not 40 feet long. If you've ever been to Marathon Village, when one of these trolley buses is giving a tour, you can't get down the street. You can pass a low-speed vehicle. You can't pass the 40-foot bus down by Marathon Village. So that's my 2 cents. I'm glad to answer any questions you've got. I just don't think the traffic study tells us anything about low-speed vehicles that we already didn't know.
Your traffic study, it's only on 2 streets?
Now, if you look at through there, I skipped around. If you look down the right-hand side, you'll see I was on various streets.
19th and 21st?
Yeah, so I stayed like on West End, but I went to 19th, 21st, and various places. And one of my recommendations that I would like to operate from 4 to 6, but I'm perfectly fine with the restriction to 21st. Because 21st gets me to the hotels I need to get to service. Anything past that, I can kind of do without during the 4 to 6 hour. But from 4 to 6, I get a lot of requests up to about 21st. And right now, weaving through the neighborhoods is a little more challenging to get to 21st. And very honestly, it causes driver mistake. Billy knows I rat my drivers out more than anybody. Every time they do something wrong, I tell Billy about it. Literally 2 days ago, I sent him an email saying a driver went the wrong direction. That happens with new drivers, no matter how much we train them. If we open that up to, I'll say, down Broadway to 21st, there's less to manage. It makes it easier. The more restrictions we put in place, the more mistakes we're going to have, in my opinion.
Of the recommendations made by KCI, are there any that you're in agreement with?
Well, as much as I hate to say it, most of their study is on the pedal taverns, so I don't want to speak on their behalf. I think low-speed vehicles, the biggest concern they had was speed differential. From the way I'm looking at it, it's 5 miles an hour. And one of the ways you could resolve that is open the ordinance. Make it low-speed vehicle and medium-speed vehicle. If you do that, now the vehicles can travel 30 to 35 miles an hour. Now they go with the flow of traffic, and they can go on any street downtown. You don't have to worry about which streets are yellow streets or red streets. Currently, the ordinance allows low-speed vehicles. It does not allow a medium-speed vehicle. That would open that up to fix the speed differential problem.
Can you speak a little bit too? So I think when you were doing the clocking, that was during pretty much bumper to bumper traffic.
I did 4 to 6 because I wanted to understand 4 to 6 rush hour, because everybody says, oh, there's too much rush hour. Reality is everybody's going slow. And if the low-speed vehicle is doing 17 and the Ford F-150 is doing 17, it really doesn't matter.
Can you just talk a little bit about how you maneuver through the bumper to bumper, or how you would suggest doing that?
Well, a low-speed vehicle obviously cannot accelerate to 30 to 40. And if you noticed on West End, sometimes there's 35 miles an hour, there's 40 miles an hour, even though it's a 30-mile-an-hour street. So number one, I'd highly recommend enforcing the speed limit. And that would bring traffic down to where it should be, which is 30. We've all been down West End and see 50-mile-an-hour cars flying down West End. I can't fix that part. So I think we need to bring the speed back down. But in relation to low-speed vehicles, they need to stay to the right as much as possible, just like the horse and buggy carriages and other stuff do. At the grand scheme of things, we can't accelerate past 25. Now, if they've got to make a left-hand turn, they've obviously got to merge over. But in general, should they be going down Broadway in the left lane as they trail all the way down Broadway? No, get to the right, get out of everybody's way, because some people are going to blow past the speed limit, which we can't fix. I can tell you down West End, Vandy, and 21st, all those are 30-mile-an-hour streets. So yes, we have 40-mile-an-hour cars going down through there, but that's not our fault, and we shouldn't be restricted because people want to speed. But yes, we can stay to the right.
Well, I'm guessing I'm trying in my head to figure out, like you're saying, and maybe I'm hearing you wrong, like saying that it might help to alleviate some traffic to have people taking the low-speed vehicles. Maybe you're not saying that.
Well, it does, and I say that because our largest low-speed vehicle seats 7. That's 2 Ubers. Mm-hmm. So do you want 2 Ubers on the street or 1 low-speed vehicle? And the reality is Uber doesn't want that ride. They don't want to go 4 blocks. We are the last mile of transportation. Most of our rides are probably a half mile or less, unless we're doing a tour, and I'll put an asterisk on that. We need the tours. The tours is how most of the low-speed vehicles make money. As you well know, we all operate on the free ride system, which means we're a tip-based system. You take the tours away, our bottom lines are shaved in half. Not that that's your problem, I get that part. But that's a substantial part of our business. And speaking on that, which one takes up more room, a low-speed vehicle or a 40-foot gray line bus? I think the low-speed vehicle is less of a nuisance than a 40, not to pick on Gray Line again, than a 40-foot long bus sitting in Marathon Village that nobody can get around. So in my opinion, we offer a better tour option than the large vehicle. Because we can park in a little hole. That 40-foot long bus can't. If that answers your question.
Yeah, I'm just thinking through things. Just how.
Well, I had 3 hotels this week that we've talked to that want us to come by and help them move guests. A, because they can't afford to have 15 shuttle buses running. And they just have constant flow of traffic of how do I get downtown? And taxis and Ubers, nothing against them, don't want a half-mile ride. They just don't. And that's where we come in. Any other questions?
One of the recommendations by KCI Technologies was to ensure that low-speed vehicle equipment had certain, met certain standards by NHTSA. And I was under the impression that we already had those regulations in place. Is that correct?
Low-speed vehicles meet all the requirements by the manufacturer. We don't manufacture them, so I can't exactly say what manufacturing requirements they make. Obviously, they pass whatever rules that are to allow federal law to say they can be on the street. Can I speak to what those are? I really can't. Now, that being said, we put some 3-point seat belts. We have roll bars in some of our vehicles. We've gone above and beyond to do some things outside of how they were manufactured to increase the safety. All of our vehicles have brake lights mounted 8 feet in the air. They come with brake lights down below, which sometimes are hidden by feet. So we put brake lights high in the air. We've done as much as you can possibly do, very candidly, with a low-speed vehicle to ensure that it's as safe as possible. Now, what standards does it meet? I can't speak to that. I just don't know, to be honest.
$6.73,300 actually already has these. They meet these standards because the federal law requires that when they're manufactured to be on the street that they meet them. And in 6.73,300 in Section B, it basically goes through those same the same ones and then actually adds a few at the end.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you for your comments. I appreciate your input.
Hello, everyone. I'm the founder of Joyride, and I completely agree with what Michael has to say. And you know, there's so many people needing rides downtown that we couldn't do it without them. And since Joyride's inception, we did 3.6 million rides. Just this year alone, we'll probably do about 1.2 millions with all of our other cities. Our new contract with NASCAR, we're at every NASCAR race. So we're on our 8th one. We're in Talladega this week. And right now, we have 0 lost claims on our insurance. We're probably the only transportation company in all of Nashville that can probably say that. For the past 5 years, let's see, go down my list here. He was speaking a bunch of things I'm not trying to repeat either. So Joyride has only had 2 complaints in the last 5 years, and the only time that those 2 complaints came is when the restrictions were put into place about what roads we could be on and so on and so forth. The traffic study brought up 4 key issues. Our speed, which in the traffic study it does say that downtown traffic moves about 18 miles an hour. I guess when they clocked us, we were going about 3 miles an hour slower, and that was through an intersection, which if that's something we need to speed up, that's completely fine. We turn down our vehicles' governors so to make sure that they go just a certain speed. And we can increase that if we want to. The GPSs, we both have GPSs on all of our vehicles, and I tried to give the KCI that information, and no one returned our calls. We've requested them to come look at our telephone conversations and when the phone calls come in. And then the noise restrictions is on there too, and we don't blast our music. We just communicate with our passengers because of downtown, all the noise there is downtown, the bars and things like that. So whenever we're talking to our guests, we have to make sure that their seatbelts are buckled and all the rules that we have to go over with our passengers. And that's the only reason that we want an amplified speaking device on our vehicle, is just to talk to the passengers that are on there. Yeah, after I started Joyride, I met with Billy in the hopes of getting our industry regulated. I spoke with him about and then submitted the majority of the regulations that took place because most of the rules and regulations were crucial. But last year we were grouped with the pedal bars, and it was not the recommendation of KCI that we be restricted between 4 and 6. During our last meeting, I emailed everyone our call logs showing that our peak times were between 4 and 6. So 38% of our phone calls become between 4 and 6. You take 7 and 9 into it, and it's maybe 42% of all of our phone calls that come in at that time. So 30,000 missed calls just last year alone between 4 and 6. That's 30,000 people that were stranded, and they were most likely stranded because that was the ride that we gave to that particular location. So we spent over $175,000 on an app, which is something that was discussed with us, and so we had it built. We spent $175,000, and then whenever the time restriction came into play, we can no longer use it. So we had to scrap it. So it's something that can still be in place that can show where the passengers are, where they're being picked up, the routes, and all of that. So so the only issue that I see is the 4 to 6 is that, unlike a pedal tavern or a tour or anything else, we can't reschedule somebody's dinner time or their birthday party or their conference meeting and things like that. I mean, that's one thing that you can push to the side and say, we can schedule a time for that. But when it comes down just to providing a transportation option for the city of Nashville, that's something we can't reschedule. And coming to the point of having somebody answer the phone and say, sorry, we can't come pick you up. Well, I'm on crutches and I'm on the side of the street and you brought me to this particular location. Why can't you pick me back up? Well, just due to city ordinance, we can't run between that time. And that's the hardest part about all of this. So removing us from 4 to 6, it's just, I want people to imagine us being like a bus, would you, or Lyft and Uber, would you, or your own vehicle, would you say you can't use it between 4 and 6? It's devastating for a business. I went from 150 drivers down to 50 now. There's been 2 companies that have now gone out of business. It's because of that. Our 4 to 6 was peak times. That's when people go to dinner from all the hotels. And most of our drivers stay off the streets where there is traffic and use the back roads and use the side streets, because I make my guys come back before 4. That way they don't accidentally get someone on their vehicle. So I make sure that they come back between 4 and 6, and then we all just sit around the office and wait till 6 goes around. And it's not that we're just restricted between 4 and 6, or 4 and 6. They have to be back before then. So they come back at 3:30. So they try not to make any plans, because if you pick somebody up at 3:30, they take longer to get dressed and they come down late. We might get caught in that time frame, which we don't want to do. So the other thing is as he spoke to, is drivers, with 150 drivers, it's hard for us it's hard for us to understand that our company gets punished per driver. There's been thousands of complaints on taxis, and you've never taken action to shut down a taxi company. But when it comes to us, we've had one out-of-bound complaint, and we were shut down for 10 days and put 150 people out of work during those days. And, you know, we're just trying to provide a transportation option for Nashville. This transit plan is going to take years to go through, and, you know, we're just trying to provide that transportation option that people are requesting. And then I think everybody might have gotten one of these. It was just the phone call, our phone call logs, and it showed the times that we're missing the calls and that they're coming through. But I request about the 4 to 6 is the issue right now.
The app that you had developed, was it an app similar to, I guess, Lyft or Uber, yes, where you can order the Joyride?
Yeah, correct. The problem is that what we want to do is utilize the closest LSV to the passenger, and right now we're just taking phone calls and asking where you're at. It'd be a lot easier, and it would help alleviate some traffic too if they were already to get the closest LSV that was allocated to them. So, and as you said, reducing the amount of vehicles on the road. There's 3 of us that took a car here today, and we have 3 separate cars. Well, the only reason is that's because this meeting usually goes past 4, and we can't get back home. So we can't even utilize the service, or my drivers can't get here. I probably have 25 drivers that don't own vehicles, and if they were to have a violation, they would have to find other means to get here. That's about all I have. So.
Any questions? Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Looks like we've got a few more hand raises.
Thank you. My name is Brian Gleason with Nashville Pedal Tavern.
I'm Angie Gleason with Nashville Pedal Tavern.
Just wanted to take a couple minutes. I understand our industry is something that's really unique. It's something that a lot of people don't understand, and seeing it from a distance, there's a lot of misconceptions about it. So really wanted to open it up if you guys have questions for us. But before that, want to point out a couple things. Obviously, I don't need to point out what Nashville is and what's really booming in Nashville. It's entertainment. We began our company here in 2010. And in 2010, it was nothing like it is now. Now, I was here for years before that, so I know it had come a long ways, all the way up until then also. But we didn't have traffic issues. We didn't have road closure issues. We didn't have the construction issues back in 2010 when we were running. And our industry is based off of bringing up the community around us. People don't really see that because unless you work with us, you don't realize it. We have over 40 partners that are other businesses in the areas we operate. Just the 4 to 6 closures, we had many of them come back and say, those were the times we needed your business the most because those are our slow times. And we were bringing them a ton of added economic revenue to the small businesses around. Our tours, even though you see a lot of these bikes on the road, our average tour is 2 hours. So there's about 3 hours of time between getting it from point A, starting a tour, and then traveling back. Out of those times, for those 2 hours, probably an hour and a half of it, our vehicles parked, out of traffic, off the road. We are stopped, and our patrons are in bars, restaurants, getting pictures at the river. We bring a big part of Nashville to a customer base that's coming here wanting it. One of our main stops is right on 4th Avenue. We pull off, we stop, our drivers tell them about the Country Music Hall of Fame. They point out this Music City Center, tell them about the development of that, talk about game days and the pedestrian bridge and Broadway and the history of it. And we're providing that service to the people that are coming here and spending millions of dollars to help boom our economy in Nashville. And when you look at the sample size of that, when you're talking about vehicles, if you look at just our industry of pedal carriages, there was 10 carts total observed in 18,000 vehicles traveling. That is one pedal carriage for every 2,000 vehicles that you've seen. And then the study shows an average of 5.7 miles per hour through intersections. Now granted, that's a lot of times that's at a stop intersection than moving. We understand our vehicles are slower. We understand that there can be some backup. But if you look at the vehicles, cars, their average is 7 to 10 miles an hour through those same intersections. Yes, those things can improve. We're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars right now in researching and developing electric assist motors. But there's a major safety concern with that we want to make sure we have a handle on before we spend that money and put it in. We've been running for 8 seasons now, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of passengers. We have over 500 people a day come through our office. And most people see us out on the streets, but they don't realize we have an entire management office staff set up. We've bought and purchased a property with a parking lot. It's all decked out in Nashville. People come there just to see it. We have murals painted. It's part of the community up on Demonbreun Hill. But obviously that is, not really part of the issue, but I just want you guys to have a full understanding of that. Second, to run our business, we have to adapt, we have to evolve, and we have to use the paths of least resistance in order for us to operate a good business. So it's already in our best interest to avoid congestion, to avoid road closures. We have can't work any harder than we have about asking the city and different branches of the city to provide us with road closures listings so we can adjust and adapt. We have a customer base that books tours with us 2 to 6 months in advance, planning their vacation around this trip. And a lot of these people are coming from our next phase. We're going to put up a big map because we have people coming from Australia, Europe, London, all over the world that have heard about this. We understand special events. We understand events and stuff where there's road closures. We don't get involved in those. If the roads are closed, we can't operate. We have asked for just an open communication so we can work together to try to figure out the paths of least resistance. To try to set a route is impossible. Roads close every day. Things have to change. We have to move different places. South Broadway compared to North Broadway. North Broadway is businesses, single, narrow lane traffic, and on a massive side of a hill. Our vehicles can't even travel on those streets. It's not even an option. The flat ground with 4-lane roads is around the Country Music Hall of Fame and all the bar districts on Broadway and Fifth Avenue. We've been asked every year for the CMT awards to come in and be a part of the events. We've been asked to bring bikes in for the award shows for television. We've done red carpet with them. The Predators, for the last 2 years they've been in the playoffs, have asked us to work together with them, have a bike down there. We deck it out in Predator stuff. They have their mascot and their cheerleaders give away free rides, go around the block. We want to be integrated with this community, but with that, we understand that there's compromise. We need to work around some struggles. So I just want you guys to know that we are not here to fight about this stuff. We are here to work together with this. But with our industry being so unique, we need you guys to understand that we want to communicate with you to let you know what things are feasible and what aren't. The 4 to 6 restrictions, it hurt our business. We lost probably close to 900 tours last year. That's close to $250,000 in revenue. We understand. We're not complaining about that because it was a need, and those times are hard. Our tours, we don't want our tours to be sitting in traffic. There's no reason. There's no fun part of our group sitting in bumper-to-bumper traffic. That's why routes are hard, because if we can strategically find ways to get out and around those things and operate on roads that don't have traffic, we want to have that ability to do that because it's in all of our best interests to do so. Did you want to?
I was just going to say, when it comes to the traffic study and the suggestions, for the most part, we are in agreement with a lot of things that, suggesting zoning areas that make sense. If it narrows down to specific roads, that can be hard because if one street shuts down, it can throw off the entire thing. And then also when it comes to electric assist, it's easy to say it, but if it were to be something where it says, okay, as of next week, you guys need to have, motors on all of your bikes. Again, and it's probably because of where we're located in the city, we can do electric assist, but he can talk more on that too. He actually builds motors himself and installs them across the country. There's only so much you can do on an actual motor assist as well, and lengths that you can go to and how long that's operating throughout the day and whatnot. I do just want to touch real quick on special events. Like he said, we have worked really hard over last couple of years to narrow down special events that come to town, where the big marathons and whatnot, we don't open until later in the day because it's not even worth the struggle to just try to put people in spots that they don't want to be in. So exactly, for this weekend, the marathon coming up, we're not starting tours until 12:30. But if it comes down to where it's just game days and concerts, that's every weekend in the summer. And it's one thing if it's saying, okay, at the start of a game and the end of the game, stay away from this area, that's feasible. But if it's saying absolutely no tours during that 4-hour time frame or whatnot, and then you add on the 4 to 6 restriction, that's putting us Monday through Friday only able to operate then from 9 to 4 p.m. Because if we have the 4 to 6 restriction, and then there's a Preds game or there's a concert that starts coming in at 7 o'clock, and then it goes till 9, 10 o'clock, that puts us out for the rest of the day. So we don't operate, like he said, downtown during CMA Fest. It's too busy. We don't want to be down there anyways. We operate over in Midtown, and we only run 3 or 4 bikes during that time, so we don't even run all of our bikes. And Preds Plaza parties, we are a part of the Plaza parties requested by the Predators, but during playoffs, obviously that's going to change and whatnot. So we understand viewing parties and that kind of stuff. We're definitely understanding on that, but if it were coming down to all special events in general, that's going to absolutely hurt all of the businesses.
We request for advance road closures from any and every entity in the city that might have that information, and a lot of them give it to us. But I would say that probably only accounts for maybe 50 to 60% of the actual road closures that happen. A lot of them are just sporadic without public knowledge. So we have to guess. But for example, if there's a Preds game, there's no sense saying you're off limits this entire time, we're already strategic with that within our own company. We have what's called Slack. It's an app where everybody can communicate, and we have truck drivers that are not tour drivers that are out monitoring traffic, monitoring veins of areas that we can be in. And when road closures are about to happen, we see the police position at intersections. We let all of our drivers know this is about to happen, and most of them strategically go plan a stop or a break for 30 minutes because typically road closures are congested for 30, 40, 45 minutes, maybe letting the relief of the game traffic get out, and then we continue business as usual. So I just don't want that 30 to 40 minutes of a little bit of congestion from a game getting out reflect an entire Saturday of business, where we're talking thousands of customers. So I just would like any sort of reaction to this to be within reason of what is actually making a difference and what is just actually hurting a small business, which is part of what made downtown in the last 9-10 years.
Can I ask a question about the 4 to 6 restriction?
Yes.
So usually obviously that's rush hour.
Yes.
And during that time, pretty much all over downtown, it's bumper to bumper. And so what I hear you saying is that you guys don't want to be in that really any more than the other people that are in their cars. And so if it's bumper to bumper, almost everywhere downtown, then what is the benefit of you guys being open for that hour? Is your system that sophisticated?
We're not arguing that. Like I said, we understood that decision, and it was hard. We had to take that hit. But we also have seen a relief in our staff and our drivers. That was a very chaotic time to try to operate what we're trying to do. And if we cannot provide a good service to our customers, which we had a hard time doing during that time, then it's something that we're going to understand. We're not going to try to force it. But I also want you to understand that the 4 to 6 is not just 2 hours for us. So we have a storefront and everything. So our last tour that can leave in a day is 1:45. So our office is normally closed, that sells thousands of dollars in merchandise and everything like that, sits vacant with no customers coming through it between 1:45 and about 6 p.m. every day. And that means we've had to cut back on staff. We usually staff 5 to 6 people in that office to talk to people and take care of the groups coming in, sell merchandise. So there's been some hits.
Yeah. Can you repeat what you just said? Your storefront closes at 1:45?
It doesn't close. It's just we have no customers coming through
because there's no
anymore.
tours.
All of our customers come through our storefront to check in. That's where our tours start. So
I think too what the 4 to 6 thing, it's we understand it because we understand it downtown and Broadway. But it hurt us too because it was a full restriction all across the city, where we asked, could we at least just be in Midtown, where we normally run just 3 bikes. It's quiet over there, there's not a lot of traffic. So it was, instead of a little bit of a give, it was just a full ban that we lost everybody during that time, where we could still accommodate at least a couple groups during that time.
And we're not here to fight to try to get that back. We understand that. What we're saying is we took such a big hit trying to accommodate for that need that the city had, that to come back now and try to add more, it seems like you have control over a handful of small businesses downtown that really are, on the scale of things, are a tiny percentage to what everything else is going around. If you just spent an hour watching downtown, there's cut open rooftop buses that roll around with like stadium style sound systems in there. Our bikes have 6-inch speakers ran off of a car radio with no sort of outside amplification. It's less than what you have in your own personal vehicles for sound. So that, I know that's just one of the items, but there's so much going downtown, and we've made a big sacrifice to try to help with traffic, that I want you guys to know we do on our own automatically try to run and operate in the least, the path of least resistance. We have the ability to try to maneuver and do things. So any more restrictions on top of that I think would hinder rather than help, without it just cutting cutting our leg off as far as the business goes.
What is Mr. Gleason, what's the safety concern you had with requiring motor assist on your pedal carriages? There
needs to be governing factors on it. You don't want that vehicle traveling excessive speeds with passengers on it. If you've ridden on one, we'd always encourage anybody to come try our business, do what our tour is, so you can really see what it is. The slow moving part of it is part of the experience, and to try to speed those up is it becomes a safety issue. 8-9 years, we've never had one negative claim against us in insurance. We've never had one accident. We've never had any sort of, because we're very big sticklers on safety. So we just need to make sure that governing them so they can't be abused or misused by an employee or somebody is key. So it's key on the pedal assist feature as opposed to just a free-for-all motor that's slapped onto a vehicle.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Looks like we've got 2 other people who would like to speak on this issue.
We have one thing I wanted to clarify. Jim Burrow, on behalf of the taxi drivers, it was mentioned that the taxis did not want the 1-mile runs downtown. Just want to clear it up for the board. That is absolutely a false statement. Taxis are glad to get a 1-mile run. It's 5 people, $3 to get in, $1 a person, it's $8 plus tip, $10 or $12 a trip. They can make $50, $60, $70 an hour. So they're very happy to pick that trip up, and there's plenty of taxis available to do it. I can assure you that, and if not, I'm sure ride sharing are around, but there's taxis downtown all the time.
Thank you, Mr. Barrow.
Thank you very much.
I apologize, I've got a bad cough, so I'm gonna try to get through this. She's gonna pass you guys out some papers. I'm just gonna read through exactly what I've put on that paper.
If you'll just officially introduce yourself.
Emmett Martin from Sprocket Tours. This is Valerie from Sprocket.
Thank you.
So there were 4 recommendations on the study. I'm just going to go through each one of those. As far as on the considering the motor assist, we agree. It just helps us get through traffic faster. On the enforcement of the noise restrictions, we will continue to comply with the current law against excessive noise from vehicles. I've actually started making our drivers keep the volume down to at least a third or half, so that's reduced it. I actually want to throw in a suggestion on the noise restrictions, because I do think that certain places in town, businesses, residences, part of the problem that they have with us and why they don't like us is maybe because of the noise in certain areas. So if you look at the back, there's a map on page 5. I'm suggesting a proposed no music zone. So that is from the pedestrian bridge on 3rd, where you hit Pinnacle, past Encore, and on Demumbrum between 4th and 2nd, because that seems to be the trouble spot that people in those buildings have with us. We enforce no music, so if any of our bikes go through that area, my drivers are instructed that they have to turn the music down. So in the pre-speech before they leave the lot, the guests know that there are certain areas when they get to that the music shuts off and that all the talking basically tries to stop. It doesn't hurt our tours at all. It's totally fine. So I would suggest that all the companies try to do that.
Mr. Martin, if we were to require GPS and then tie the GPS to the radio so we know when you're over the limit, I'm being facetious, but I
was like, well, maybe. I mean, look, again, nothing's perfect, but as a company policy, our drivers turn the music off. Not down, it's off. So there's no ifs, ands, or buts. The only thing that you'll hear is probably talking. And most of the drivers don't even go that way anymore. They just said it's easier not to go that way. But I do think that's an important thing for all of us to try to self-police ourselves. On the restricting the routes, if you look at the map, and Brian talked about this, if you go north of Broadway, that's all hills. We can't do it. There's just no way. So with this proposed restrictions, we basically have one square that we would be able to do. And that would be Demonbreun, 5th, Broadway, 1st. So it would be that square. So you literally would push all of us just doing a circle if this was to happen. We can't go up those hills. It's just impossible. So I would ask that you really think about the impact on that. Going back to page 2, restricting the routes in this fashion would severely cripple the operation flow of the pedal carriage companies. Most, if not all, cannot make it up 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th on that side. Again, daily road closures. Even if they tell us, my other company does special events. I'm very familiar with how this works. When the Public Works sends out a notice of road closures, there's no time on it. It just says on Saturday these roads will be closed. Well, if I put on a race at 7 and it ends at 8, that paper doesn't tell you when it's closed. So for what we do, that notice is actually kind of worthless because it's not really accurate. And then you also don't know when the police are going to shut down any intersections at any given time. Fifth Avenue, which is on the proposed route, that's closed probably 75% of the time because of Preds games or a concert. So that would cut out that a quarter of the proposed route. Skipping down to G, since the 2016 traffic study, we've been restricted from 7 to 9 and 4 to 6, which has made it harder for us to operate. Not fighting on that. We agree. We have to adjust. It has impacted us negatively, but we also agree that that's what we're going to have to deal with on some things. On this proposed route, it wouldn't allow our company to do our Midtown or Music Row routes. And just in general, if we were forced to do that square, it would just diminish the overall experience that we provide to our customers. Maintaining existing permit levels, we agree with that. On the additional notes, I just wanted you to make sure that you guys had a real clear picture of like what's going on downtown. I think for whatever reason, because we look like the oddballs out as far as the entertainment and the vehicles, I feel like we're probably picked on a little bit more. But you have Off the Wagon, Party Bars, Honky Tonk Express. They're completely unregulated, as you know. They've all doubled their fleets. As Ryan spoke, they have the loudest speakers that you can ever imagine. They don't monitor whether there's explicit lyrics. They're just kind of doing whatever they want to do. And I feel like we're getting all the blame for everything. So I just really want to point that out, like what's out there, and that we're not the only ones that are operating. There's a lot of people that are operating that have no self-policing themselves at all. I wanted you guys to see, we book out so far in advance. And those numbers that I put on there they're real numbers. In April, over 500 full bikes, so that's 500 bookings times 16 average people on the bike. So this is not a small operation. We're not an operation where we post up at the side of the road and hope people walk up and want to get on. This is a heavily booked industry. It's extremely popular. We did over 70,000 people last year. On the next page, I thought it was important for you guys to see our financial contribution through taxes, so I put that on there. And I just wanted to point out when Mr. Murphy did his presentation, he said he was open to discussing this further. He understands how road closures and everything affects us. So I would suggest that, that there is no vote on this specific topic today because the impact is extremely heavy, and that we just discuss it more. In closing, we feel very strongly that as long as the pedal carriages are maintaining proper protocol and self-policing, that we can continually contribute to the downtown entertainment scene and be good neighbors. Those two pictures on the back, I just wanted to also continue to point out how many unregulated vehicles that there are out there. That we're not the only thing in traffic. And I actually live downtown, so I understand. I'm affected by, valets from restaurants that hold traffic up. There's a lot of things. So I just want you guys to have a all-around picture of what's going on, not that we're just the only, people down there causing problems. So I'm losing my voice, so if anything you guys want to, I'll quit talking.
You need to update your chart with the hearse.
Oh, the hearse. I rarely see that.
All right, well, thank you, Mr. Martin.
Okay, thank you.
How many carriages do you have right now?
Oh, we have 9.
9.
Yeah. So we have 9. I think Pedal Tavern has 10. Country Music Hall has 1. And then, I can't imagine how many big tour buses that, that stop and give discussions about a certain location. How many there are of those? I mean, there's a lot of stuff beyond us that, we don't stop in the middle of the road. We don't do any of those kind of things. So, any more questions? Sorry, I'm not in better shape.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Susan with the Country Music Crawler, and this is Michael.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael Wren. I'm here on behalf of Country Music Crawler. I don't want to rehash a lot of the things that the other two pedal tavern companies talked about, because I think that as far as the concerns with the traffic study that they have are industry-wide for all three companies. I think that we can share those views, and I don't want to go over anything that they've already talked about. The Sprocket Rocket talked about this being a discussion, and we agree with that. I think this is a time for us to go over our thoughts with the traffic study and have you guys hear our ideas and continue that conversation, because I think these are big decisions that have to be made. One of the things that we wanted to talk about and point out was some of the positives with the traffic study that we see and things that we want you to take into consideration. This committee or this commission with horse carriages governs routes and zones for those carriages to operate in, and we think that type of adoption for the pedal taverns would be a good thing as well. And as the other two companies talked about, we think with road closures that specific routes would be extremely difficult to govern, but we do think that we can do zones. And part of the maps that you guys received have 3 zones that were pointed out in the traffic study. What we think is the positive to having zones for these vehicles to operate in is that it eases traffic in non-route or non-zone areas. The other 3 companies all use certain zones that they have. If you look at their websites and what they advertise, they all advertise some combination of a Broadway, a Midtown, and a brewery tour. And that's what is pointed out on those maps there are the Midtown, Downtown, and what we call brewery tours. With those zones or with those tours, I think that we have a better opportunity to regulate how many vehicles are on the road at any one time in those specific areas. Currently, the only way that this commission knows how many vehicles are on the road at one time is that you know how many active licenses there are. But as far as how many are in the downtown area, the Broadway, or Midtown, you don't find out unless somebody makes a complaint to the commission. So what we would propose is having those zones and regulating the number of permits for those zones. Currently, I think there are 20 permits and 19 that are currently active or in use. What we would propose is 21 total permits, 7 for each zone. This way, we know exactly how many vehicles are in a zone or can be in a zone at one time. All of the licenses hopefully would be active and in use, and it gives you a better idea of being able to govern the special events and things like that that can be difficult. I think one of the issues that has come up is every single year, Music City, my client has come in and asked for another permit. At this point, she has one. The other company, I believe it was 9 and 10 or 11 and 9. I think for the companies that have been here and have been here for the long haul, this gives us a chance to add one more, because as all of them talked about, this is a pre-booking business. We have people come in, and I think you have folks that have already booked in August, and we're in April. It's September at this point. And so all of the companies can use this as an opportunity to grow. And what we would do is that this is an ongoing conversation that should be had. I think that this commission knows that there are going to be growing pains. You guys are going to make decisions, and we're going to have to see how those work out and how those turn out. And I think this is something that we need to look at the traffic study, look at the companies and what they're saying and their experiences, and be able to be flexible and look at ideas. But at this time, I'd entertain any questions that you guys have.
Any questions for Mr. Wren? These zones and your proposal of the 21 permits for these zones are not the same size, and each one of these zones would be permitted an equal amount of permits, or is there a plan? Because obviously Zone 1 is larger than Zone 3. There would be a smaller amount of permits. Well, being your percentage is smaller than Sprocket Rocket and some of the other towns, are you suggesting that an equal share be slid from those over to your company?
At this time, what we have and what I've seen in the study is that there are currently 20 permits or 20 licenses. So this would be adding one additional license. I think technically at this point there are only 19 active licenses. So if the companies that have non-active licenses want to put them in use or not in use, that would be up to them. But one of the issues with Zone 1, excuse me, or the Broadway zone, the other companies touched on anything north of Broadway, it's too hilly. Most of the vehicles can't get up there, so it's actually a little bit more equal in size for each zone than what's shown on that map. The other thing too is that this would be ongoing. We would want to see how it goes with all of the different companies and see how it works. But I think one of the things that you guys are interested in is decongesting some of the areas. And if we know where they're operating, we know exactly how many bikes can be in an area at one time, I think that makes your job easier. And it's one of those things that we're going to have to work with all the companies to see what works. This is just a proposal that we have that we want to open the conversation to. So whether or not the zones are equal, as I believe Nashville Pedal Tavern stated, all of these companies have partners that they work with in these tours. Not everybody works with the same ones. So for each of these zones, they may be going to different places, dropping off passengers at different spots. Those are things that we'd all have to work together in doing so that we can use these zones, have the commission know where these bikes are, and not be on top of each other. But I think it is a way to give you guys an idea of how many vehicles can be in one spot at one time, and have a better regulation of these vehicles.
Do you have some type of ongoing study in these zone areas
Not at this time, no. What we've looked at is the traffic study, and I was here for the first traffic study on low-speed vehicles, and then I've looked at the new traffic study as well. I remember after the first traffic study, there weren't a whole lot of happy people. I know that's when the 4 to 6 regulation came in. And as the other two companies have talked about, everybody's taken a hit from that, but it's also something that we're willing to do to sacrifice because, one, it puts less stress on the drivers. It alleviates some of the congestion downtown. And with this new traffic study, we still share the same concerns that the other companies had as well. But we're just trying to look at different ways to make this job easier for you guys in regulating these. And then, in full disclosure, my client has applied for a new permit every year since 2015. This is something else because all she's asking for is one more permit. We think this is part of a plan that helps you guys and then also helps my client as well.
And to go back to your question about, are we asking to regulate 7 per area? No, we're saying that would be like a max. If we choose to get 7, if you approve this, then that would be up to each company. But that would make it where it would be no more than 7 in each area. The other 2 companies are already operating tours there. I don't know how many per day or how many per week or anything like that, but they already offer Midtown and Brewery tours and stuff. And I've mentioned over the last couple of years, as he mentioned, you don't know how many bikes are down on Lower Broadway until you come down there. And I mean, I've counted 14 in one day. And this will help alleviate some of the traffic. And that's what part of this traffic study is about, is trying to fix the problem, the solution. And we absolutely agree with the 4 to 6 p.m. We're not arguing that at all. But there's still traffic problems.
And one of the things about having these zones and spreading these bikes out is it benefits the city of Nashville too. It gets people, it gets tourists into different parts of town other than just Lower Broadway. And so we think that there's a benefit there as well. Because when people come in and book these way in advance, if a booking for Lower Broadway is already done, well then they'll have 2 other options that they can look at, and that gets them into different parts of the cities as well. So we think that there's a benefit there too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think we had one more request to speak.
Hey y'all, I'm Dustin Olson from Nashville Pedicab. First of all, I want to thank y'all for y'all's time. This is a very nuanced conversation that you guys have to deal with, and a lot of different people coming from a lot of different directions. First, I want to talk about pedicabs. There are 23 total permits, 20 of which I run. And let's talk about what a pedicab is real quick, just so everybody knows the size of my vehicles. And Mark, who operates Music City Rickshaw with the other 3 permits, we are 39 inches wide by 78 inches long. We are a very, very small vehicle. We're actually, we are shorter in width than 2 people riding a road bike down a road. So with that being said, I think it's hard to make a blanket statement for all either for-hire vehicles. 1, because we're all different sizes and we're all different speeds. 2 is we have different things that we're all trying to accomplish. Some are only trying to give tours, some are only trying to give A to B rides. And that necessitates a different nuanced conversation. I do want to touch on special events for pedicabs. The certificate that we get from Nashville states that we are there for public necessity and convenience. Special events is literally our necessity and convenience. There are the majority of people that go to special events in downtown Nashville, whether it's the amphitheater or Ryman or Bridgestone, are from out of town. They either don't know where they're walking, don't want to walk, can't get an Uber because it's not close enough, etc. And we provide that necessary experience for them to get out of the area quicker and actually get the crowds moving quicker because they're on a pedicab and not walking anymore. So to limit us during special events is kind of negating what our permit from the city is meant to be. That's all I really wanted to say. If there are any questions, I'm more than happy to answer. Oh, also, 4 to 6, I forgot. I know Officer Bork stated that he sees less pedicabs on the road nowadays than he had in the past. That is literally in direct response to the 4 to 6. I had half my fleet quit when that happened because they are no longer able to make a substantial living with the amount of pedicabs I have. I'm not asking for more pedicabs. I'm just saying people that would ride during 4 to 6, and they are not wanting to ride that time because they are riding around absent-mindedly. They're actively giving rides to people either coming in from day trips or heading out. Just remember, we're 23 total vehicles downtown, and we're 38 inches wide. So I think it's a little misdirected to say that our 23 pedal-driven vehicles at 38 inches wide are creating some obscene traffic congestion in downtown during these hours. I know we're not here to say this is how we can make the most money, please let us make the most money, but as our certificate is for necessity and convenience, we're not out there to ride around absent-mindedly. We're out there for the necessity of getting people where they need to go for these short trips.
But you do realize 2 bicycles wide on the road at pedal speed is still on the road.
Yeah, absolutely, right.
So
as a road cyclist myself, I don't like riding too wide. I was just kind of trying to give a size comparison.
Right. And that's why you guys were put still into that category. Yes, you're the smallest in that category, and I say that because I run a transportation company, and I have my smaller vehicles still lumped in with, say, my 16-footers are still lumped in with my 26-footers.
Right.
Simply because on the road, they're still basically kind of bigger than a car.
Right.
And they're not as big as a semi, but they're bigger than a car. And in the same sense is that you're bigger than a single person walking, you're going faster than someone, and you are wider than a person, and you're on the road.
Most people, not all.
Right. Well, I would hope.
But yes, I completely understand what you're saying. I do. We're also, I mean, this is a completely different topic. We're also not allowed in bike lanes, and we fit in a bike lane, and that would literally alleviate every traffic hit. And it's different. We have some cop, and we go by a cop basis. I tell all my riders to stay out of bike lanes unless directed, and it's 50-50. Some cops will direct you, what are you doing? Get in the bike lane, you're holding up traffic. Some people say, what are you doing in the bike lane? Get out of traffic. You're not allowed in the bike lane. But literally, if we were allowed in bike lanes, this wouldn't even be a discussion.
Well, thank you very much.
I appreciate it, y'all.
We had one more person, and that's all we're going to allow for on this topic.
Okay. Hi, I'm Mary Beth Igert. I'm with the Mayor's Office of Transportation. In 2016, the Mayor's Infrastructure Team commissioned a report from the Urban Land Institute of Nashville on a series of recommendations the city should make around near-term goal setting on infrastructure. One of those was to reform third-party use of public space, recognizing that Nashville, like many other American cities, has a multi-pronged problem with use of public space. Our system of fees, regulations, and enforcement often encourages lengthy, often unannounced use by utilities, construction zones, and to some extent special events, and companies offering entertainment services to our locals and visitors alike. But by addressing this problem, we can alleviate considerable traffic congestion, help traffic flow, account for the true cost of the metropolitan government providing services, make Nashville's streets safer, and give greater priority to the more efficient modes of transportation that move greater amounts of people. We do have a transit referendum on the ballot that we'll vote on Tuesday. If we receive funding for improvements to public transportation, we will be adding considerable frequency to MTA bus service, 10 to 15-minute headways for buses on 10 major routes throughout the county that serve 70% of the customer base. At some point, to deliver on that level of frequency, we'll have to look at some transit priority in and through the downtown until the portion of the project that would support that added frequency, the tunnel project, could be delivered. Right now, MTA averages 3 miles per hour through the downtown. And so that getting slow-moving vehicles on some designated routes sooner rather than later, so that we can think of our streets in the downtown as a system, and how we can create priority for the other modes of transportation, I think will be a benefit going forward. I did want to mention challenges around the loading zones. Curb management is increasingly becoming a problem for both the Public Works and Police Department, not just in downtown, but throughout the urban core. But where we have loading zones, there needs to be 3 minutes of active loading. If it's longer than 3 minutes, folks should be considering use of private lots instead of just hanging out in the loading zones. So appreciate you looking at this issue. I do think that KCI has been a reputable partner to the Public Works Department over the years, and that we should consider these recommendations in looking at transportation as a system and putting greater value on public space.
Thank you. At this point in time, we'll close the public hearing and open this issue for deliberation amongst the commissioners.
Is it possible that we would, outside the public hearing, have Mr. Murphy here speak to the recommendations and what he's heard today? Would that be a benefit to us?
Mr. Murphy had planned to be here and is still planning to be here. He does have a representative here.
I see Mr. Murphy.
Oh, he did come in? Well, Bob Murphy's here. He snuck in. He told me 3 o'clock. It is 3 o'clock.
It's 3:30.
Sorry, time passes fast.
No, if you have, especially if you have some questions for Mr. Murphy, I didn't realize he was here either.
Well, I just think that it's, that his firm completed the study. He's heard some of the feedback here, and he might have some wisdom to share with it. I'm sure he does, but he might have some wisdom on this topic too.
Please.
Is that okay?
Yes.
Chair?
I think I came in a little late, so I might not have heard everything, but I think I understand in general the topics and kind of the philosophies. And I mean, I think as I've stated at a previous meeting, we understand that our recommendations were done without really having discourse among all the parties and without the benefit of the public hearing. So we understand that there's potential that we may need to take into that consideration and look at potential modifications, particularly when we're talking about identifying specific routes. We feel like it's very desirable to limit the utilization of the public street system more than it is now, and try to do that in a thoughtful and well-designed way to minimize impacts to traffic. And so, in general, as shown in our recommendations, we feel like identifying specific routes for the various slow-moving vehicles is a very desirable option. And the idea of, for instance, with the pedal carriages, to have certain specific zones, I think is a good idea. That's in general follows our recommended routes, where we did have 3 different areas that we were trying to get the pedal carriages into based on our understanding of where they wanted to go. We did not look at the option of establishing a maximum number per zone. I think that idea has merit in terms of avoiding a situation where you have a lot of the majority of the pedal carriages, for instance, in one area. I think, though, we would need to look at kind of the comprehensive idea in terms of figuring out what that number should be or how it should work. I mean, we might end up saying that it'd be better to have more than 7 in one zone and fewer than 7 in another zone, for instance, based on the routes or the levels of traffic congestion. So, and I guess, what I would say, I think there's, we would be certainly comfortable with taking in the comments that we've heard and trying to figure out what the ramifications of those are, and continue to work to try to come up with a solution that works for everyone. it's not our intent to shut down the services. It's really, our goal is to make sure that the streets are as safe as they can be with these slow-moving vehicles operating, and that the traffic congestion is not negatively, that traffic is not negatively impacted by the operation. So I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Have you seen the revised proposed areas for that either one of them,
No,
either one of the two companies?
I've not seen those yet.
No.
Can you tell us a little bit about what your process was? And my question behind that, almost depending on what you say, is would it be beneficial to have the input of some of the business owners that would be impacted contribute to the report or give recommendations so that, as you said already, that possibly you could incorporate them?
Right. I mean, we'd be glad to talk and meet with the business owners and discuss further the solutions. In general, the way that we looked at the routing was, and we established course routes for horse carriages as well as pedal carriages and some differences apply there, but in general what we're looking at is trying to minimize the impact of grades, so try to avoid streets that had steep grades. In downtown Nashville, you can't do that completely, but that was a big factor. We looked at all the grades of every street. And then another really important part of it was looking at currently where are they going to and from. So where do they start, where do they end? What are the, in terms of the pedal carriages, what are the locations and routes that they want to try to be on? And then we looked at trying to identify routes that would minimize the impacts to traffic based on that. Now, I mean, there are certain streets that are hard to avoid just because, for instance, we have the interstate and the gulch where there's limited crossings, and all the crossings are pretty heavily trafficked. So, we did. That's why the pedal carriage route that we've shown is on Demumbrian Street. But in general, what we were trying to do was get them where they wanted to go on the streets that had the least, where they would have the least impact.
Did you, in this study, and I know this hasn't been voted on yet, but was the impact of the proposed transit routes or system, was that taken into consideration or not at all in this study?
Only to the extent of trying to avoid the major arterials where we know the transit is going to be focused, especially. In terms of specifically looking at the proposed network from the transit plan and trying to avoid those, we didn't do that specifically, but we did. Currently most of the routes into downtown, the major routes into downtown, the major arterials, already have transit on them, and so that was one of the factors. And with the new transit plan, in general, that's going to continue certainly for the first several years, where they're just simply, where a major part of it is to increase the frequency of service.
Well, thank you, Mr. Murphy.
How long would it take you to evaluate the kind of the zone and route suggestions that were presented here?
I think we could do that pretty quickly. Certainly. I mean, for us, looking at it within 4 to 6 weeks for sure. I think it would be beneficial also for us to have some opportunities to sit down with the operators and talk about. I mean, we're probably going to look at their plan and have some different ideas, just like they've looked at our plan and had different ideas. And I think that's one of those situations where sitting down together and trying to work out something that seems to make sense for both sides would be a good approach. So, you know, that might take a little bit longer, but I would say probably within a couple months we could come to that conclusion.
I would just, if that's the will of the commission at some point, I would just ask that you look at it from the transportation licensing perspective. A lot of what we're hearing today is more about the transportainment licensing perspective, and we're the Transportation Licensing Commission. There's a big difference between entertainment and transportation.
Right. And as I mentioned, our focus is really, I mean, we understand that they serve a function, and we appreciate that, but safety and traffic flow is what we're really, is our focus.
Okay. Thank you.
If you wanted to, I don't think it's inappropriate to ask them to take into consideration the public hearing today and then go out and gather whatever data they might need. If it did take, I'll go to the upper end 6 weeks, that would put it to the June 28th meeting. The June 28th meeting is also it'll be the annual meeting for determining emergency record zones and that sort of thing. So it certainly could be an eventful meeting, but
Right.
But it would not be inappropriate, I don't think, from a staff standpoint for Mr. Murphy to gather any other information to make sure we're providing the best detail and the most, the best information we can provide to you.
Wait, you said that would be at the June meeting?
That would just be, if we took 6 weeks, it would bypass the May meeting, so it'd be the June meeting.
Would it be beneficial, since the June meeting already has something allocated, well, in addition to whatever else is going to be on the agenda for that day, would it be beneficial to put this on the July agenda, or would that be, you know, on the one hand, I don't want to push it out too far, but I also don't want to put it on the agenda if we know ahead of time that it's likely that we won't get to it.
Well, I can't predict the June meeting. It typically depends if anybody requests to operate one of the zones that's not a current operator. So if it's a contentious meeting, from that standpoint, it would add, 30 or 40 minutes to your, but I can't predict that right now. I'll have a better feel for it in May, but I can't tell you now.
Having been through about a dozen of the zone hearings, they're usually typically pretty condensed.
Okay, they're not, okay.
Yeah, they're not as,
yeah. Only
especially now that we've continued
Correct.
to consolidate users or providers.
I don't think it'd be unreasonable to put it on the June agenda. In the May meeting, you've asked to consider the horse and carriage issue, so.
Well, having heard from Mr. Murphy and Mr. Turner's suggestion that maybe Mr. Murphy talk with the low-speed vehicle companies and the pedal carriage and pedicab companies, is there any portion of what we've heard today as part of the public hearing that we would like to address today, or do we want to jettison everything to July?
I think looking at it comprehensively with additional input from the operators and the professionals would benefit our decision making.
I agree.
Would anybody like to make a motion?
To June instead of July, though.
To have it in June?
On the 28th.
Yeah, with the regular June meeting.
I will be absent that week, so.
Can we have a special meeting then?
You certainly have the right to have a special meeting if you choose to.
We need an umpire, and Sal is a good umpire.
I mean, if the commission's agreeable, we could we'll have to check on the meeting space, but we could set a special meeting and only consider those issues at that meeting you wanted to consider. If you'd like to have the chair present. And that question's come from the vice chair, by the way, so.
Make the motion.
I would move that we consider a special meeting to consider the report and recommendations from KCI.
Could I ask one question? Mr. Murphy?
Yep.
Would you feel comfortable saying when you would have that, or would we be better off for you to be able to do it and then give me a call or whatever and say, I've got the data, we can be ready in 2 weeks or something like that, and then we can call a special meeting for that? In other words, we don't necessarily have to set a hard date for a meeting today. You could give him time to do the study, he could report back. I can then go back to the chair and say, this is what we've got, and we could come up with a proposed special date for the commission. It'd be depending if
Mr. Fields, I misspoke. I am actually here June 28th. So I apologize.
He's got a lot of kids.
Since my motion's not been
It's the week after.
Okay.
My motion's not been seconded, I can withdraw it, I think.
So
Withdraw.
June 28th is fine.
Then we don't have to do anything. We just, Mr. Murphy he'll gather additional information and bring.
All right.
Ms. Husky has a question.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if formal action would need to be taken, but if CMA is the first week of June, and last year y'all did pass some further restrictions, around CMA. I know most of the operators testified that they don't operate during CMA, which is wonderful. I don't know if formal action is needed to make sure that that is, clearly expressed, but if it is, that would be the only thing that I might ask the commission to take a look at, since that would occur before you would take up the rest of the business.
That was one thing I did have some comments on, because I personally, in hearing everything, had some reservations about having a blanket prohibition on operating during special events, because it's such an amorphous term, and I think we're better served, even though it's more work, to address special events on a specific case-by-case basis, because you're right, CMA's, special event has special circumstances. A regular, event, a regular Preds game is different. And so, I think to the extent we need to have any kind of special action for CMAs, we can take that up separately.
Well, I was going to ask the question. We still have the same, I don't recall a lot of complaints from the industry last year on the plan that we adopted last year. The plan was actually done, it was between special events and the office, and we could probably would it make sense to adopt for CMA what we did last year? And we still have that information to be able to distribute. And again, the companies may want to ask, they may have protests from that, I don't know.
Well, we don't have to take that up right now.
You don't. I know. I have the authority in the office to be able to do that, so we can work with the special events committee to determine if we need to make restrictions.
Okay.
Can I interject? I'm sorry.
It's to the chair.
Go ahead.
Just want to clarify who we're talking about, because we operated last year.
That's correct. I think the only, it was the slow-moving vehicles, the horse carriages, and the pedal carriages that were restricted, and then I think we did make special accommodations for the petty cabs to be able to service the ingress and egress during that time.
Hours, right?
We had restricted hours, but it was, we did work with all the operators to make sure, and again, I think I heard from every pedal carriage company that they were like, it's not worth us operating downtown during that time anyway. I just want to make sure that we don't all of a sudden have CMA happen and then MMPD is like, oh my gosh, there's a pedal carriage down here that kind of didn't get the memo.
So what we'll do, with your permission, is just adopt what we did last year and send that out first of the week through the special events committee maybe, and then and then we'll go from there. If there's any protests at that point, we'll just take it up individually.
All right.
Is there any way we can have two meetings? Because I believe everybody's confused about low speed and slow moving. And it keeps coming up and people are talking on different terms. And people are getting really confused about the speeds and this compared to our different groups. We're a completely different subject and service than the slow moving vehicles.
I think we understand the difference. All right, would anyone like to make a motion? Do we need to make a motion in order to get this scheduled on the June meeting?
I don't think, we just added as an item for that. I will have to ask Mr. Murphy a question. Mr. Murphy, does your contract, the part of your terms, your contract will allow you to go ahead and do this without me? That's what I thought. Okay, thank you, sir.
We need to make a motion to adopt the agenda for this, that we previously made for the CMA exception to,
I thought he said he had.
to extend that.
I don't think, I think he said he was gonna just enact what we did last year.
Okay.
All right, next we have a public hearing on proposed TLC administrative rules related to driver qualifications and application requirements, as well as requirements for general business liability insurance. Mr. Fields?
For the most part, this is absolutely nothing new. Most of the ordinances actually already carry this language. However, there are some subtle differences in some that aren't required in others. For instance, F endorsement is not required on all of the company, on all of the vehicle drivers, but an F endorsement is a for hire endorsement. And for instance, at the present time, it's not required for the pedal vehicles. But what we would do is, what we're trying to do is make it, if you're going to be a driver, you're generally going to have the same requirements. The same thing would hold true if you look down to making sure that all people's background are checked against the National Sex Offender Database, that all drivers have to submit an MVR so we can actually look at their driver's record, that all drivers are subject to being excluded if they are part of a hit and run, a DUI, a reckless driving or felony reckless endangerment for the last 3 years. So what we're really trying to do is just make sure all the drivers are the same. For the most part they are, but what will happen is one section of an ordinance will say this isn't, that they don't have to, or it's silent, and the other 5 say they do. So what we're trying to do is just through the rules, until we can rewrite the ordinance through the rules, make sure all the drivers are treated the same.
Is there anyone who's asked to speak on this issue?
Not that I'm aware of. Again, it's more housekeeping on our part. I'm not going to say somebody, but it would not be retroactive. It would be simply going forward. Those that are there would not affect. And the same holds true for the business insurance requirements. That particular rule is just making sure it's clear.
I just had a question. Is anything else required at the DMV to get an F endorsement? Do the riders then have to go to the DMV and take a separate test or study for something else?
It is an additional test. It's like, and I don't hold one. I understand it's a 20 question test. It's not, typically all the cab drivers take it, all the limo drivers take it, the horse carriage driving.
Delivery drivers take it. All my drivers have F endorsements.
Right.
It's a very short test.
I just didn't know if they were going to have to come out of pocket or if it's relevant at all to riding a bicycle, or if it's like pertinent questions to somebody to ride a bicycle.
Nothing is really pertinent to riding a bicycle, to be real honest with you, from the standpoint of a driver's license. Basically, what we want to make sure is that if you couldn't qualify to drive a car, we're not sure that you should qualify to drive a bike. You know what I'm saying?
Right, absolutely.
So we're just trying to be consistent.
Is that not given with the driver's license itself, though, that you're now qualified to drive a car?
Correct. If you don't have a driver's license, you can't drive a car. What we're trying to say is this way all of the drivers are consistent. In other words, we're trying to treat all the people the same.
Right.
And if we go, I don't know why it was left out.
Yeah, I was just asking on the basis of another step for drivers. They have to come out of pocket for the learning materials, or
your concern is your pedicab drivers. Some of them do not have F endorsements.
Well, no, all of them have a valid driver's license. You have to get a pedicab permit. So my question is, what else is it adding to the driver experience or his learning?
It's going to talk about actually carrying passengers. It's going to be focused on the idea of for hire for passengers.
Okay.
Which is what you're doing.
Right.
And there is a small cost involved.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Does anyone else would like to speak on this issue? All right, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Would anyone like to make a motion regarding the making the proposed administrative rule changes to make them more uniform?
I make a motion to propose the uniformity of all the requirements.
I'd second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay. The other section that I'd like for you to consider is a rule, it'll be an Administrative Rule 16 that would be an overarching rule on all the insurance. We want to make sure that all the companies have to have business insurance in addition to anything else that they have. In some cases, it may not be clear to them, and because what we're asking for is no certificate of public convenience and necessity or license to operate a business or service shall be issued unless there is proof of general business liability insurance covering the certificate holder, license holder, and/or the business operations of not less than $1 million single limits, naming the Metropolitan Government as additional insured unless otherwise authorized through the Metropolitan Code of Law. Such liability insurance policy shall be with an insurance company authorized to do business in Tennessee and shall be filed with TLC staff. This rule shall be supplemental to all current requirements in effect and govern where the Metropolitan Code is silent with respect to this subject. So again, this just makes sure that all the companies have the same kind of insurance across the
Are they present? They all just have ALs and not GLs as well?
It's just, there are a couple of, the language and some of the ordinance is going to end up needing to be rephrased. This just makes it very clear. And it's no additional expense to the companies. This is just the same insurance they have. It's just very clear they have to have it. It's mostly new applicants that come in and say, well, it doesn't say that. So, well, here's what it says. Well, so this clears it up where there's no question.
And so this is an added, or is this an amendment to what we have?
It's like a catch-all provision. If for some reason the ordinance isn't entirely clear on the limit that needs to be carried, it's sort of our way of safeguarding that it's understood clearly.
So we just need to make a motion to adopt the addition?
To the rule. Because we have some reference to this in the code, but generally I think each code is written, each section is written differently with respect to the type of vehicle. So Billy and I are trying to make it uniform so that when you open up each section, it's going to look the same, and until we're able to do that, we've found instances where some sections aren't as clear as others with respect to what is required, that we've typically required. So we're trying to just cover it that way until we can go in and open it up and fix it.
I'm making a motion again to the uniformity of a GL policy as a requirement for all the companies, all the applicants.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
One more thing, and this is something that I didn't catch in the first, I thought you would adopt as a group. The language that's at the bottom of Rule 16, the rules shall be supplemental to all current requirements in effect and govern where the Metropolitan Code is silent with respect to this subject. Because you took it up separately, if you could just vote to add that language to Rule 15 as well, so we make sure we're not running into any conflicts between the rule and the code. Does that make sense? No? Here, this language at the bottom.
So we need to make a motion to adopt the language?
To adopt the last sentence with respect to the first rule that you passed. To put it at the end of the first rule.
Which is on the driver qualification.
Correct.
Right, yes. I
Um,
want to do them all, I'll let you do this one.
I move that we further amend the driver qualification application requirements that this rule shall be supplemental to all current requirements in effect and govern where the Metropolitan Code is silent with respect to this subject.
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, going back to the top of our agenda, we have an application from Clay Evans for low-speed vehicle permit.
Clay Evans? Clay Evans. Mr. Evans is not present.
Move deferral.
Second.
All right, and we also have some other passenger vehicles.
And a vote.
Oh, excuse me. So we already have a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
And Mr. Poxatek should have actually been higher in the agenda under LSVs.
All right.
Robert A. Poxatek?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
In making his application, Mr. Poxatek.
Positek, that's correct.
I was close. Failed to include any of his background from any of his background information. Most of it dated back into the 90s. There was nothing since 96 appears to be the last thing, I think.
Is there a reason why it wasn't included?
I do apologize. I simply just forgot about it. It's so long ago.
And it was from 90, what? What was?
I think 99 was the last one, 96 or 99.
None of it disqualifying.
Nothing would disqualify him. It's certainly old information. The first one would have been 88, and then the last one looks like it is actually 96. There was some action in, there was some sort of a court ruling on a probation in 98, but his last actual activity would have been 96.
And there would have been no issues if they'd been included, other than it delayed getting a permit?
And he had to sit through today.
Sounds like appropriate punishment.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
We've got some other passenger vehicles for hire applications. Got 4 here. Is there any reason not to take them up together?
Let me look at them. Let's see, Mr. Brown, Terrence Brown, if you'll come up. Mr. Brown, in 1993, he failed to list a 93 drug charge. The second one would be Thomas K. Brown. Mr. Brown had some driving issues, nothing that would prohibit him from being from a driver, just a matter of that in a short period of time back in 2008, 2009, he had some issues related to, he had a DUI, and then, so, and he'd had a couple of DUIs in it, so I like to present those two, but there's nothing that would disqualify him at the present time. Mr. Thomas Brown, he's here also. Mr. Kevin Lucas has requested to be deferred until the May meeting. And then the last one is Mr. Wade. Mr. Wade failed to disclose multiple driving on suspended license on 99, 03, 10, 12, and 14. Otherwise, he would be qualified. He just failed to list those driving on a suspended license. The driving, let me see, Mr. Wade, are you present? It appears that it was related to child support payments.
And that's why it was suspended?
That's what it appears, yes.
Okay.
In all the instances?
I think so.
Is that correct?
Job changing it, was just trying to get adjusted to the job change. It was more of a career change.
And that's why it was suspended?
And modification.
Yeah.
When the child support, if you change jobs, it's my understanding anyway, that they're trying to modify, especially if there's a garnishment going against the wage, and if you switched and didn't pay. But again, you'd see a page of it, Mr. Carr, there's just a page, those are all child support related. They didn't, I'm not gonna guarantee that there was, I don't think any of them were really violations of the traffic laws. It was aimed more at,
There wasn't no violation. There was one violation, but it's a lot of business, but I wouldn't.
All right, well, Mr. Brown, other than the 93 drug charge, he's otherwise qualified?
yes, sir.
So we have 2 Browns and a Wade and a deferral on Mr. Lucas.
Correct.
I'm sorry.
Hey, the mic's working now.
I apologize.
You fixed it.
Lucas.
Yeah, you got this one. Lucas is a deferral.
And it looks like for Mr. Wade, he did disclose failure to pay child support suspensions, but just not all of each individual one.
I move approval of Mr. Brown, and Wade, and deferral of Mr. Lucas.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, we have some new company applications for other passenger vehicles for hire. Do we need to take these up in separate?
Two I'd like to pull out just to make sure we're clear. Addis Ride, if I could read the ones we could approve as a group. Addis Ride, Azimi Livery Service, Decini Black Car, Elegant Rides, Premier Car Service, Sam's, Nashville Uber, and Tennessee Transport Services. They have completed the application and they're in order.
We got the AGO and all around town.
Do we need to approve the names of these companies?
I think you could approve what I just read, if that's what you mean. Do they need to restate them? No. Legal says you do not have to restate them.
But we're holding 2 out.
We want to hold 2 out, and there's just some additional information I need to provide on that.
I move approval of Addis Ride, Azimi Livery, Decini Black Car, Elegant Rides, Premier Luxury Car Service, Sam's Nashville Uber, and Tennessee Transport Service.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay. In AGL's application, the reason we want to hold out, the owner of the company also needs to, we need to look at the application and making his application. Initially, Aston Gunkin.
Yeah.
Come up, please. He had had an issue that was related to an aggravated assault and a domestic assault. He was, and that would have been a violation. However, it ended up being an issue that I would have still brought to you because of the nature of it, but because the way he was charged under, wait just a second, I was excited. Let's see. 1 second. Anyway, it was charged under, the original charge was an aggravated assault. However, they withheld any finding of guilt until, so he had a period of time to have everything. It's 40-35-313, which is the disposition is not granted, and he's given a time period to complete certain things, community service and supervised probation. He was able to complete that and is now off probation. So we were trying to determine that he was, so we think he's now eligible, but I wanted to call that separately. Otherwise, they're qualified.
Are we waiting on a resolution for that, or?
He's fine now. What he done, he was brought in and was actually dismissed off of probation in 2014. That's what we were trying to figure out. It was an issue of the probation that you can't, if you're in this status, you wouldn't be eligible. Under this disposition, you still wouldn't be eligible. What we were trying to determine is make sure that it was fully covered. His company was coming in anyway, but because it was an aggravated assault and a domestic, y'all are very sensitive to those things, so I wanted to share that with you. There's not been any issues since then that I'm aware of. So he's
But this was omitted, or we knew and we were just waiting?
We knew it.
Okay.
We investigated more. We just had to have additional information. When he provided the additional information, we've been able to determine that he's qualified. But the nature of the charge would get him to visit you to make sure he understands the seriousness we have related to any violent act. And again, we've not had any issues in 5 years.
As a current driver.
He's been a cab driver before.
It says here 12 years.
Mm-hmm. I think he was here the first time I was in this job.
Billy, if you're comfortable with it. I make a motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay. All around tours, Ms. Pruitt? Okay. In making her application, Ms. Pruitt had failed to list a 2013 vandalism charge. Because she is the owner of the company, we put the application along with the company. The company is in order, but she did leave that out, so you'll need to, she had to come to the commission.
You tagging trains around town?
No.
Well then, can you say what?
Oh, well, so this is our first time. We're just starting up a new business, and we'll go do the application, and they tell you to put everything in your whole life. So we was not prepared to put all of that. And I know I've had a ticket, a couple of things. So we go back, repay the $75, and then they provide us with the background. Then I redid everything, and they just told me to come here. So I was just totally unaware. And you just forget your whole life.
Otherwise, she's qualified.
Thank you.
Popular name.
Yep, we do need a motion.
I'll motion to approve, Ms. Pruitt.
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Cool.
You're welcome.
Second time today. Thank you.
Appreciate it, man.
So what's the next step to get the decal?
Back to the office. Tomorrow.
Oh, back there tomorrow. Thank you.
All right, appreciate it.
Next, we have a request by Renaissance Limo to add Ermias Regas as a partner.
I think you could probably take all of these. What we have these are all reports that have to be made to the commission and accepted to add a partner, to delete a partner, as well as any of the certificate changes, which are mostly address changes. There's one deletion of an LLC, but all of the next 3 items in the agenda are items that you have to consider and are in order. They're reporting them to the commission. If we had a consent agenda, I would have actually asked you to place that on the consent agenda.
Maybe we should start doing that.
Well, we certainly could. If you ask for it, I bet you we could arrange one.
That's Renaissance Limo, JWT, all the way down to total transfer.
Yes, sir.
I move approval of the items on the agenda from the request by Renaissance Limo down to and including everything up to Total Transfer LLC. Move approval.
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. We also have 2 complaints against Nashville Pedal Tavern. The first is against Sherry Berg, from Sherry Berg. Mr. Fields?
Ms. Berg contacted the office today, and she is not present. She was also not present last month.
And was Nashville Pedal Tavern here both times?
Yes.
So Miss Berg not here both times, Pedal Tavern here both times?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think that's, I think I know where you're going. I think that's proper grounds to go ahead and dismiss.
I move dismissal.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. We also have a complaint against Nashville Pedal Tavern by Darlene Boston.
My name is Vicki Cummins. I'm here representing Miss Darlene. She's in poor health today and can't make it.
If you could turn the mic a little closer, it's hard to.
Yeah, that one.
The
little one.
The small one's fine.
Okay. Better?
Yes.
All right. We had come into town on the 23rd with a seminar, and we had went downtown and went to Jackalope. We had left there.
On the 23rd of when?
I'm sorry, September.
Okay.
Okay. We had left there and had came up behind this pedal tavern that was just sitting there. We thought he was going to take off, and he got up and went to the back and then went back up to the front. Then he had gotten off, but we didn't know if it was mechanical issues or customer issues, so we sat there and waited. We sat there about 4 or 5 minutes. And then when he took off, it appeared as though they weren't driving. And when he was getting off, when he had went to the back of the trailer and went back up to the front, he had stepped off. Well, you know, everybody's having a good time and waving. And I went to take a picture. And it shows as he was taking off, I don't know how he was doing it, but nobody was in the driver's seat. So we followed them, and I've got pictures here. We followed them down to 4th Avenue, and he had gotten off. He had stepped out into the road. I'm not sure what he was doing, but then he had gotten back on. Darlene has been doing insurance for 30 years. I just actually got a new job today. I'm a surgical tech. I'm not quite sure what I'm seeing here. I'm not from here. We thought this matter needed addressed. She had placed a claim in October. She didn't hear anything, and she resubmitted in December. It wasn't until February that she got a phone call back for the meeting. She was not feeling well at that time, could not make it. Not quite sure what's going on. That could have been a really scary thing. I don't.
Do you have the photograph? We'd
Yes,
like
sir.
to see it.
And were you a passenger or were you just a bystander?
I was in the passenger side. We had left. Arlene, where do I start? I'm sorry.
Just, you can have.
So you're a passenger on the pedal tavern?
No.
In a
vehicle? Let me back up. I'm sorry. When we had left the restaurant, she was driving. I was in the passenger seat. When we pulled up and seen what we seen, I just went to pull my phone out, you know, take a picture of him. And then that's when he started getting off. And when he walked to the back, he walked back up to the front, and then he stepped off, got back on. He sat there for a couple of minutes, and then, minute and a half. And then he got off, and the picture, it appears that he's talking to the first customer, maybe the second customer. He was right there. And then the trailer went to take off, and nobody was in the seat. Do you see that picture?
I do see the picture where it appears the driver's standing on the side.
Yeah, I don't know how these run. Like I said, I'm not from here. They look like fun.
They run slow.
But it just really, you've got 14, 15 passengers on there having a good time, and it needs to be addressed somehow.
Is your complaint that you were waiting for the 45 minutes?
No, my complaint is patient safety. There was none.
So your concern
Or,
is
I'm
that
sorry,
there was
customer
no
safety.
driver in the seat as it was moving.
Correct. There was, I have seen somewhere you've got a server and you've got a driver. I didn't see a server on there.
And you saw that the bike was operated all the way down to Demumbrian
Correct.
without someone at the driver's
The last time he got off, they had turned down 4th, and was going down in front of the Country Music Hall of Fame. And then he got out of the seat, stepped off. He couldn't see him, and then he stepped and got back on. So I'm just not sure. And the thing about it is the customers was having a good time, and nobody was saying anything. There was no.
That's him right there.
Mm-hmm.
So it was moving, was he running beside it? I'm confused.
You can't.
Yeah.
In one of the pictures, you can tell the second one. When it went to take off, no, he wasn't in the seat. It looks like he's beside it, leaning over. And the pictures are so hard. It was off of an iPhone and an i4.
Tail and tail, but it's hard to
Did
say.
he jump back on it?
Yeah.
What happened to the? Okay.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. He would always get back on it, but it was getting off, getting on.
My guess.
You know, and like I said, we didn't know if it was like a mechanical issue in the beginning, or if it was a customer issue, and we didn't care to sit there and wait. That wasn't the issue. It was.
So you were stuck behind it.
We were behind it. When we had left the restaurant, he had stopped, and we had come up and stopped behind him.
But this is the same spot.
Mm-hmm.
This building.
So, again, not sure exactly what was going on. It was just a
This is moving, of course. This is
big scary thing, and then for nobody to.
And I didn't catch your full name at the beginning.
Victoria Cummings.
Oh, I'm sorry. We're calling him.
INS.
We're just discussing. We were. So this was our take on it.
This was around
These are not
10 p.m. roughly.
So just to recap, what you witnessed is you saw the driver get out from the driver's seat, was standing on
Walked
the
to the
ground,
back. He walked to the back, and then went back to the
went
front.
back to the front, but then got in a passenger seat.
Well, no, he had stepped off of, is it a trolley, a tram, the ride?
Tavern.
Yep, tavern. He had stepped off and got back on, and then he sat there for a couple of minutes, and then he got back off, and that's when he was talking to the first, and he may have said something to the second one, but it was like he was right here by the first person. You can see my view. I was directly
And
in
the
back.
whole time this is happening, the pedal carriage is moving?
No, it was sitting right there. And then when he went to take off from that stop sign, right around 8th, when he went to turn, he was not in that seat. That's where that was.
And what I'm trying to understand here is then you witnessed the pedal carriage go from 8th down to Mumbrian with no one in the driver's seat. It was just the passengers pedaling the carriage? Okay.
That's the way it appeared from my view in those pictures. I was directly behind.
Can we ask the owner of Pedal Tavern?
The deliberation should really be on the record, so if
Oh,
you guys are deliberating.
sorry. So what? In conjunction with your story, what we are getting is this is the time period in which he was stopped and he was stepping outside of the vehicle. He, because we don't know his name,
Correct.
is this gentleman here, correct?
Yes, sir.
In the blue jeans and the dark colored shirt.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what we are assuming, and these are labeled 1, 2, and 3. In photo 1, you can see obviously this gentleman is in the driver's seat, and we are ascertaining that because in photo 2 you can see the steering wheel here. Here you can see ahead where the steering wheel is.
Mm-hmm.
Here you can see the steering wheel.
Mm-hmm.
He's actually outside of the vehicle here, correlating to her story. This vehicle is stopped. The building and the stop sign in these photos are all in the same place. They have not moved. If you see the stop sign here and the column from the building, they're all the same distance in all of these photos. So the vehicle's not moving here. He is in fact outside of the vehicle in this photo, given the steering wheel here and his presence in the photo here. So he is outside the vehicle, but the vehicle is stopped. In this photo here, this is an obvious photo 5. This is an obvious picture, oh, I'm sorry. photo 4, this is an obvious picture of the tavern on the street, and where the position of his head in the photo of him sitting in front of that steering wheel is blank. I don't know that this lady is particularly lined up perfectly with his head so that it appears that way. But in this photo, this is where he's positioned. In this photo, there's not a head there.
Is this, okay, well, I'll wait till.
It's the reason we have good ratings on these replays.
Well, I mean, I guess my question is for Pedal Tavern, how is this possible? Like, can you move the vehicles without somebody there I'm not denying that it happened. I guess I'm just trying to understand, is it an actual possibility?
Could we possibly ask?
Brian, if y'all could come up.
Yeah, that's who my question is directed towards.
Would it be okay to share these photos with him for a possible explanation?
It's on the record.
Since that you own a pedal tavern? Or several?
We did try reaching out to her to get more details because we weren't notified till March. So from September to March, we had no idea that this was even out there.
Oh, this is your pedal tavern?
Yes, we are Pedal Tavern. Yeah.
We have 10 bikes.
So,
when this was brought to our attention, this March. And it was at that time we were told this first was from last September, 6 months ago. We were not given a date. We were not given anything other than it was in September.
The commission's not holding that against you. I don't understand why it's taken this long either. But
well, this is the first we've seen pictures.
We've been trying to do
narrow down who the driver was to get details on
what happened.
I think we just want to know, is it possible for this to move without him being in that seat?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So the only thing that we could try to speculate on what happened is that, of course, we're trying to get information to try to figure out what happened. We contacted all of our staff and put out the situation, said, you're not in trouble, contact us if this could have been you. We'd like to try to figure out what's going on. Nobody came back, obviously, and said it was them. We've asked our tour managers what this could mean, what it could be, and they said the only thing we could think of is if possibly maybe there was a road closure or something not allowing them to go on a street that they could pedal on, and the driver had maybe hopped on the front seat to try to help pedal. Now, the front seats on our bikes are designed from the manufacturer to be able to move the bike around if you're by yourself. So as we do maintenance and we work on the bikes in our own parking lot and storage, if you get on the front right seat, you can pedal, have access to the steering wheel and the brake all at one time. We actually load our trailers that way with one person sitting up there. They can literally pedal the bike, navigate it up the ramps, and hit the brake to stop at the top of the trailer. Absolutely.
Not in a passenger.
And it had never come to our attention that anybody might try to do this on a tour, so it was never part of, a training, it's one of those things you just don't think of happening. So the fact that when this came up, we were extremely concerned and what's going on. We tried making contact with Darlene. No response to phone calls or emails, just to try to figure out maybe who the driver was, if there was photos involved. We asked Billy if there was photos. He said nothing had been submitted to him as far as dates or times or photos, so we could look back at our booking, because we wanted to get down to the bottom of this just as much as anybody else. But until this time,
that this is September 23rd now.
Yes.
Have you changed any drivers? Any drivers been fired or hired?
Yes.
In that period?
That was another thing, is there's a handful of drivers that are no longer with us we thought could possibly be them. And that's honestly our staff, and anybody can say this, we're like a family. We all go to Easter together. We get together at one of our houses. Every holiday we do things as groups. So I don't see any of them being distrustful as far as if this was them and not saying it.
And
so
one thing
at that photo, would you say that there's a driver in that seat? Look
in
at the
this,
one with
yeah,
it
in
on
this
the
picture.
road on 5. No,
5. Yeah, this is 5.
So not stop sign.
This is 5.
Look, it's 4.
And I think where I was confused more too is because why we we're expecting a road closure was because if you look at the complaint form, it says Demumbrian to 8th Avenue at the roundabout. So that made us think that they were at the roundabout on Korean Vets, or not Demumbrian to 8th, yeah, Korean Vets to, is that right? I'm
We're
sorry.
really confused on the roads too, because some of the roads that was in the description are different than what she's saying now.
Right.
And some of them aren't even on our route.
The road.
Right.
8th
Okay.
Avenue South roundabout to
What road it was
Demumbrian.
on.
This is the only photo that it looks like there might not be someone there, but it's really hard to tell. If you watch our drivers, a lot of times they turn like this to shout commands to pedal and stuff. So possibly
Here
he's
is-
turned and you can't see him, but again, I'm not saying that they're lying about what they saw, if that's what they saw, but
Right.
this just seems all very confusing to us.
It's just been hard for us to narrow down the exact situation, when it happened, where it happened, and who it could have been, because we didn't see any pictures. We didn't have a date. We just had on the complaint form end of September. And then the street description says 8th Avenue South roundabout to Demumbrian. So that made us think first that this was a previous employee that is no longer with us. Because after talking with everybody and trying to narrow it down, nobody was saying that it was them and whatnot. And then second, that we were thinking that if this was a previous employee and the only reason that they would have felt that they would have needed to do this with passengers on board is if there was a forced road closure that they had to divert to a road that we don't typically go up. Because we don't typically go from the roundabout at Korean Veterans to Demumbrian, because you're going up incline, when they could easily just go down Korean Vets and then come up 5th or 4th like they usually do. So this is the first that we've seen.
And again, it's
that
not something we would ever think would even be a situation. So since then, and since this has been brought to our attention, it's part of our training. We've notified all the staff that in any scenario, this is not acceptable to do this. But again, they all kind of laugh at it, shake their heads like, why would we do that anyways? That's not something we would do. So I obviously don't want to make light of any situation that may be safety, but I can see where possibly the drivers understand this is how they move the vehicles when it's just one person. The bike is designed to have access to the steering and the brake from the front right pedal. That's how it's designed from the manufacturer. So if they got into a scenario they couldn't make it up a hill, there was a road closure, and I don't know, that's another question we're going to ask for them. Was there an event at the time? Was there a road closure, anything happening that could have forced them up that road? Okay.
And because, like you said, because these don't have motors on, or not all of them have motors on, they're not designed to have the motors on them, they can't move them easily without people on board. So that's why the manufacturers designed it so you can move it just by yourself if you need to. I mean, we do it all the time for, unload or loading the bike up at the end of a tour when all the passengers are gone. Then that's how they get the bike up on the trailer.
Any action by the board need to be taken on this?
But we have addressed this to every single employee since this has been brought to our attention, and they have all been told. We updated our handbook policy and everything. This absolutely do not do this with passengers on board.
I think, it's clearly up to the commission to take any action. I think the action should be aimed at the driver. So we would have to identify the driver, which we didn't have any information on. We also didn't have the photographs still today, which is fine. Again, those kind of things happen. I can't tell you why it wasn't brought to you because I don't have, frankly, I didn't bring my notes. Typically what happens with a complaint is we try to contact the people that made the complaint and say, can you give me some more information if we need additional information? If I did not get hold of her, then I would have held it till we could have gotten hold of her. But again, I'll take full credit for anything that doesn't show up at the commission. It's my fault. Period.
And we did reach out on our end as well, email and phone call. Yeah. And I left a message with a woman on the phone for her, just saying who I was. We're trying to research this a little bit, get some background, some more information regarding the incident. And then I left my phone number and email for her to call me back. And that was before last month's meeting, before it was going to be addressed. And I still have not been contacted.
I think, given that we don't have the driver's information, and that the best possible outcome is that the retraining of the drivers, which has been underway, that we would dismiss the complaint. It's a general thought.
Well, unless we can identify who the driver is, right?
Right, we can, and we don't have that information today, and we may not ever have it.
Not by these
pictures don't. I can't
we have,
tell.
Well, now
For
that you
girl, if it
know,
was girls, yes, we only have a handful of girls, but we have,
25
now
almost
that you know the
30
specific dates, you didn't know the specific
specific
date
dates, but we
today.
have we have 6 tours and 6 guys that all fall within that.
We can try to track it down and speak with those specific drivers.
It was approximately 10.
And see if any of those drivers are no longer with us, which at first glance, just sitting here, we noticed one of them right away is no longer with us, but we can look into it.
Unless legal tells me we can't do this, we could do this. Can a charge be retired like they would do in general sessions, but then, it does not dismiss it? If we can get additional information from the company, then bring it back, rather than set it for a hearing certain next month, we may not know next month. But if you're retired, it would just sit in a suspended state until it was
You mean
brought.
like indefinitely defer it?
Well, defer to,
It would be, I would just say you could defer it pending additional information, and if there's no additional information, maybe you bring it before the commission if there's nothing, or you report back to the commission if the driver has been identified. Or they take action today.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was kind of dark, but it appeared, which one? That one? Like a,
If you would, if you would speak up, because
Yeah.
we're
Oh,
being
I'm sorry.
broadcast.
In
I
one
was
of the
trying to help
pictures,
identify who the driver might be.
when you can see him standing outside behind which picture is it? It looks like he's got like 2.
Long hair.
Yeah, like a man bun.
Which could, again,
We
could be a
couldn't
handful of
identify,
them.
they would just, it's gonna help you.
Yeah.
And it's in our best interest too. We
Right.
want to find out who it is, because either they lied to us and said it wasn't them, or it's someone that's no longer with us. We just want to get to the bottom of it too.
move to defer and just be held in a deferral unless I can get additional information.
Move deferral.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Is it indefinitely, or is it
Until we
for-
get more information.
Next to the May meeting.
Okay.
So from us, you just need more,
If you can provide additional information.
Okay.
And then they've already had the hearing on it, they can take it back up. Without your presence, if you want to be here, we certainly don't want to exclude you or
I'm
Ms.
just here
Boston.
to represent.
I understand. I mean, we're not trying to keep you from being here, but what we could do is try to identify additional and then bring it back.
Could we request copies of these by any chance?
Yeah, they're part of the record
We will
now,
need
so.
We will need to keep the pictures for the record, and then once they're given to us, they become public records, and you can request a copy of that.
Okay, y'all, Pat?
All those in favor of the motion to defer to the May meeting?
Aye.
Motion passes. Mr. Gleason, I did want to mention, I notified Mr. Fields a few weeks ago about, because I learned that one of your drivers used the center lane of West End to travel from 18th all the way down to all the way to West End Summit, and just took the center lane all the way through the 19th intersection going straight. And I've provided Mr. Fields a photograph of that, and I would like for you to find out who that driver is so we could have that person.
18th to, what was the street, and do you know the date and time?
The intersection where Amerigo's and West End is, and that took it
19th.
all the way down the center lane with passengers, all the way down to West End Summit. The person who told me about it couldn't see any further than that.
Okay.
Was this, I think he brought this?
Yes.
Okay, yep. And when I spoke with him about that, we have, as far as we know, we've never been given a zone or a
Right.
restriction.
And I understand that that's apparently, the fact that you're using West End is not against any regulations, but I believe it is against the law to use the center lane as a lane of traffic to go all the way
Okay,
down.
I was under the impression he was in the turn lane.
That is the.
Or, I
center
mean, where
lane.
the picture was, sorry, that he was at the turn lane turning left onto 19th.
No.
Okay, he
going
was in the
straight.
center
He
lane.
went straight.
And he went straight through
Oh,
that
he went-
intersection. Okay, we didn't have that
Okay.
information, yeah.
But you do have the picture already.
Yes.
Yeah.
My understanding
Yeah.
was he was just making a left turn there. I didn't know he
Right.
continued on it.
Because that would be our normal route, left on 19th, but he went straight.
Went straight
So then going up the hill,
to West End Summit.
where's West End Summit?
The big lake.
What was that?
Yeah.
Not West End
You know?
Summit,
Yep.
the West, whatever, the actual.
I'm familiar
building,
with it.
The Palmer building.
Oh, okay, Palmer Place.
Palmer,
To
Palmer
Palmer
Place
Place.
building.
We'll see what we can gather between now and then. We'll be seeing a lot of each other.
That one will be much easier to figure out.
Okay.
All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
I have one other piece of business. At the last meeting, Music City Touring was found in violation of the Metropolitan Code regarding insurance. He was fined. He has not paid the fine. He's still not produced insurance. So I wanted to report that to you. We can't take action today on that, but it was pretty clear and specific action from the commission, I think, about what he wants to do in a 30-day period. In fact, Ms. Stillman reviewed and then asked me, we both then reviewed sections of the ordinance, section of the video, and it was clear that the intent of the commission to us was to pay in a 30-day period, which would have been last Sunday, I think would have actually been the 30th day. So we would propose to bring him back and take action at the May meeting, but I wanted to report it to you.
All right.
Wanted to make sure it was on the record and
We
reported.
can't do anything about it today?
I think he'd have to be given notice
Okay.
and so forth. And I wanted your direction. I assume you'd want me to bring him back as just failure to comply with the order of the commission. And work with legal to make sure we've got the right information for him.
But he did pay the fine.
He has not paid the
Oh,
fine
he's not, okay.
and still has not produced insurance. My intention is to, after the meeting, what we'll do is order him off the street until a hearing in front of the commission for failure to comply and also to failure to provide insurance. Now for many more days, another 30 days beyond what y'all had already heard about. That was all I needed.
I hope Mr. McNally.
I've not advised Mr. McNally yet.
Oh, Lord. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes.
4:40.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.